Story 1. Stepsister stole my fiancé and sent me postcards rubbing it in. Now they're broke and begging me for a job at the family business she was supposed to inherit. I, 28F, was engaged to my boyfriend from college about 4 years ago. We had been together throughout college and then got engaged at the age of 23. We were engaged for a year, but a week before our wedding, he took off with my stepsister. My ex-fiancé Greg, 28M, and my stepsister Melissa, 28F, eloped a week before we were supposed to get married and left nothing but a letter for me. In it, Greg mentioned that he had started an affair with Melissa a couple of months after we got engaged and had realized that he couldn't get married to me because that would be unfair to both of us and also to Melissa because they were the ones actually in love. He said that he believed that the universe had just used me to lead him to his true love, so he couldn't be with me anymore and cheat us all out of a happy future by marrying me, and that was it. They ran away and I didn't see them again until recently. Greg's parents covered the entire cost of the wedding, and I didn't have to pay anything because they were so embarrassed by what their son had pulled. But that was pretty much the last interaction that I had with family since we had nothing more left to talk about. My family, however, was more than embarrassed. My parents were livid and my father had actually started considering hiring a private detective so he could track down where the two of them were and drag them back home for answers. Just to let you know, my father is actually my stepdad, but he has been my father ever since I was really little and I have always addressed him as such because to me he is my only father, and I have never known my biological dad. My dad had left our family shortly after I was born and my mother never met him again as he had signed away his rights over me and they had never been married. She then married my father when I was 8 years old. Melissa and I used to go to the same school and that's how our parents met each other. But for some reason, Melissa decided that she didn't like me and then went on to treat me badly for the next couple of years. She was a bully in the truest sense of the word, and she and her friends would constantly pick on me when we were at school. It didn't even stop when we got home and she would just keep looking for opportunities to make me feel bad. I did complain to my parents several times and they tried to reprimand her. But it was just not enough and she wasn't even scared of our parents, so she continued to bully me. My years in school were a total nightmare because of her and all her cronies. Just like my dad was not in the picture, Melissa's mom wasn't around either. But that was because her mother had passed away a few years after she was born. Her mother had passed away in the middle of the night from an epileptic episode. So any time that my mother tried to discipline her, she would tell her that she had no right to school her because she wasn't her real mom. And my father did try to get her to stop bullying me, but it didn't work because she just wasn't scared of anything. They had tried everything from scolding her to trying to talk to her nicely, but nothing ever got her to stop picking on me. Occasionally, they would even threaten to send her away and she would dare them to do it because she knew that they were all empty threats. And that was just her in middle school, so with time she only got much worse. By the time we were in high school, she had already taken up a bunch of bad habits and was pretty much a juvenile delinquent. She had started smoking and would occasionally sneak out of the house to go drinking with her friends who were just as bad as her. It wasn't until she got arrested with her friends one night for breaking into somebody's house while drunk that our parents finally decided to send her away and get her the help that she obviously needed. After a few weeks of begging and protesting, my parents finally got her to go to a rehabilitation center for troubled teens. She wasn't happy about it, but my father had been very firm and had said that if she wanted to live with us and be a part of this family, then she would have to get better because he couldn't allow this behavior to go on and let her trouble everybody else since she was becoming a menace to society. She left in our sophomore year and didn't come back until we had already graduated since she had enrolled in a school near the rehab center and was living with her aunt. I didn't see her for those couple of years, mostly because I wasn't interested in how my biggest bully was doing. My parents would visit her every weekend and would ask me if I wanted to come along, but the answer to that was always no. Her friends started ignoring me and pretended like I didn't exist after she left, which improved my high school experience considerably since now I didn't have anyone bullying me constantly. Melissa had continued with her education in rehab, and when came back, the first thing that she did was apologize to me for whatever she had put me through. She seemed a lot calmer and I actually thought that she had changed for the better, so I forgave her. We were about to go off to college in a few months anyway, so it didn't matter. Once we started college, I moved out and so did she. We would only come back for the holidays and she was much nicer to me after that. And by nicer, I don't mean that she would actually behave nicely with me, I mean that she would just ignore me instead of picking on me every chance she got like she used to do in the past. If I'm being honest, it was a much welcome change because I would rather be ignored than be bullied. Our parents noticed this, but didn't try to force us to get along or act like sisters, because given our history, this was more than good. And then I started dating Greg, and after being together for a year, I decided to bring him home for Thanksgiving to introduce him to my parents. All of us got along really well, and for the first time I noticed that even Melissa was taking an interest in the conversation, which was a rare occurrence ever since she came back from rehab. She and Greg were actually getting along, and after I started dating him, she started expressing more of an interest in being friends with me and would often reach out to me to just talk, which she never did before. I didn't understand what was going on, and I had a tiny suspicion that maybe she had a thing for Greg. So one day I decided to just ask her if the real reason she was trying to be friends with me was because of Greg or something, because I was paranoid. She laughed at that and told me that that wasn't the case. But Greg had mentioned what a great relationship he had with his siblings at our first dinner together while talking about his family, and that's what had made her rethink the way she had been behaving with me ever since she came back, which is why now she was trying to make amends and improve our relationship. It had nothing to do with Greg directly, but he had definitely played a role by being the catalyst and forcing her to think about our relationship. She told me that she had held me responsible for her being sent away for the longest time, but eventually she had come to terms with the fact that it hadn't been my fault and she had brought this on to herself with her terrible behavior. So it was about time that she stopped punishing me for it and started trying to really become a part of this family, and that wouldn't be possible until she apologized to me from the bottom of her heart and actively tried to work on our relationship. I'm an emotional fool, and what she said to me that day touched me. So like an idiot, I decided to forgive her and be friends with her, and I guess that's what hurt the most because she betrayed me after being friends with me. We were on good terms for a really long time, and she was actively involved in the wedding prep. I wouldn't say that we were the best of friends, but we were not as bad as we used to be. While we were rebuilding our relationship, we would meet at least once or twice every month and talk to each other, so by the time I got engaged, we were doing well. I had introduced her to Greg in person as well before the engagement. Whenever we would meet at family events and stuff, they would behave pretty normally, so I never suspected anything because I had no reason to. Even after the engagement, they continued to behave as if nothing was going on, and not even for a second did I think that maybe Greg had a thing for Melissa. It simply didn't ever occur to me because Greg put up a really convincing act of being in love with me throughout while he was cheating on me with Melissa, and even she was very convincing at pretending to be my friend. So I didn't find out the truth until it was too late and they were already gone. My parents wanted to trace them and bring them back home, but I convinced them to leave it alone because I just wanted to forget about everything. It was bad enough that the two of them had made a complete fool out of me and ran away a week before I was supposed to get married. I absolutely didn't want more drama because I was really depressed and just didn't have it in me. I spent the next couple of weeks doing nothing but working and sleeping because I wanted to avoid confronting my feelings. My heart was obviously broken and I was just numb, but the worst was yet to come. A couple of weeks after my supposed wedding day, I received a postcard from Melissa. She was in California, but that wasn't it because she had also used a bunch of photos of her with Greg and they appeared to be really happy. It was very obvious that she was rubbing it in my face because she had even mentioned that she was sorry about the surprise before my wedding. But she wasn't sorry obviously, and it was just meant to anger me. It was then that I realized that she had never really forgiven me for what happened all those years ago and still held me responsible for the fact that she had been sent away, and neither had she even wanted to be my friend at any point. She had just used me to get to Greg, and I had trusted her and let her use me as a stepping stone. It was a really diabolical plan, I'll have to give it to her. For days after she sent me that postcard, I couldn't even sleep because I was losing my mind over this. It was a really traumatic experience for me, and I had to get therapy for months to undo all the damage and deal with my trust issues. The postcard wasn't even a one-off incident, and she sent me postcards of her and Greg for months after that. It only ended after about a year because I hadn't responded to her or played into the drama. Our parents were really upset about it and naturally cut all ties with her after that. They didn't even try to reach out to her after the first postcard, and that was a huge loss for Melissa because she was all set to inherit her dad's business. She was a business major, and that was a part of the reason why she had chosen that route for herself, because she wanted to join her father. But of course, after what she had pulled off, our father cut all ties with her and told me that I could join him instead because he felt like he had to make up for everything in a major way. But I didn't have a business degree and I actually was a history major and that pretty much had nothing to do with business. So I needed to learn the ropes first. My father said that it was not a problem because he was willing to teach me everything that he knew so that I could eventually take over the business instead of Melissa. So I agreed and started to work under him so I could learn how to run the business and he could retire and hand over the reins to me after a while. I worked really hard for a couple of years and last year I was finally promoted and my father retired. It was an amazing feeling because I had started from scratch and had to learn everything. But now everything was smooth sailing under me and has been for some time. Thanks to me, my parents can now spend more time together without worrying about the business because I'm taking care of it. It's been this way for quite a while and I pretty much stopped thinking about Greg after I started working for my father because that took up all my time. That, along with therapy, helped me move on and I would say now I've completely moved on and don't think about them or what they did. I never thought that they would ever reach out to me again, let alone ask for my help because it would take a lot of guts and an utter lack of functioning brain cells to ask me to help them out after they screwed me over and made a fool out of me, then went on to rub it in my face as well. But I guess that Melissa and Greg really do lack brain cells because that's what they reached out to me a few days back. I was at home because it was the weekend and around lunchtime I heard someone frantically ringing my doorbell. I thought it was the pizza that I had ordered, so I didn't think much of it. When I opened the door, I received the biggest surprise of my life when instead of a delivery guy, I found Melissa standing outside my house looking really worried. I didn't know what to say, so I just silently waited for her to say something. While looking at her, I realized that she was definitely here to ask for help because she was looking destitute and her appearance gave her away. Even as a kid, Melissa always used to dress well, but when I saw her she was dressed in old clothes which were all faded and had obviously been purchased a really long time ago. Her jeans were way too short and she herself looked like she hadn't been eating. I had already made up my mind that whatever she was about to ask me, the answer was going to be no. So when she said that she needed me to help her out because she and Greg had been struggling for a really long time ever since he had lost his job a couple of months ago. He had started drinking instead of looking for a new job, and even though she had been trying to find a job for herself, she couldn't because she had quit everything to stay at home and do all the household work when she first moved away with Greg. And because of that, she hadn't been working in the recent past, and the gap in her resume made her a weaker contender for all the jobs that she had been applying to. She said that she had heard from a couple of relatives that our father had retired and had handed over the reign of the business to me. So now she was here to ask me if I would be willing to hire Greg and give him something to do. Melissa told me that she had come all the way here only to ask me for help and said that she was sorry for whatever she did in the past. But now she was counting on me to bail her out. She told me that she hadn't even approached our parents yet and had come straight to my house to ask for help because she knew that I had a kind heart, and she felt awfully guilty about betraying me in the past. But she was sure that I wouldn't turn her away now that she needed my help. Her entitlement was so ridiculous that I ended up laughing in her face and told her to apply somewhere else because I don't hire cheaters. Then I shut the door on her face and walked back into the living room preparing to call the cops if she didn't get off my property soon. Thankfully, she did go away that day, but she hasn't left me alone yet. After her visit, the first thing that I did was call our parents and tell them about it. They told me that they had heard from a couple of their neighbors that Melissa was back in town without Greg, but they hadn't brought it up, and we live in a relatively small town so everybody knows everybody. We were quickly able to find out that Melissa had been here for about a week before she finally paid me a visit and had been living with one of her cronies from high school. It was probably her high school friend who had told her where I was living and also about the fact that I had inherited the business that was rightfully supposed to be hers, and now she was really milking that. A couple of days after she visited me, she decided to go meet our parents to tell them how heartless I was being. She had expected them to be on her side now that she had the upper hand on who was suffering more. But she couldn't have been more mistaken because my father told her that the business was now mine to run, and I could make whatever decision that I deemed fit. He didn't have any say in it anymore because he wasn't going to micromanage me, and my mother reminded her that she was the one who had screwed me over by running away with my fiancé after pretending to be my friend for years, and now she completely deserved whatever was happening to her. She had lost the right to ask any of us for help, especially me, after she had even been sending me postcards to torment me. She tried to defend herself by saying that it was all in the past and she is a different person now. But my parents told her that she had to leave because they wanted nothing to do with her anymore. that led to her throwing a tantrum at their house and claiming that they had always favored me over her and treated me like the golden child. She told my father that in spite of being his own flesh and blood, he had never treated her like that and acted as if I was his only daughter and she was worth nothing to him. When he told her that he had made more allowances for her behavior in the past than any other parent in the world would, she said that it still didn't matter. I had everything that she was supposed to, including the business that I was showing off about. She said that it wasn't even her fault that Greg had fallen for her and wanted to spend his life with her instead of me. But for some reason, she was the one being punished for it and claimed that the postcards that she had sent were meant to be a genuine apology and she wasn't even trying to torment me. And honestly, I haven't been able to stop thinking about that since my father told me what she said. In a way, it's true that she was supposed to inherit this business and be in my place, but she really lost it because of her own actions. I had no part to play in that. I never told my father to cut her out of his life and hand over the business to me. He did it of his own volition, and it feels kind of unfair for her to blame me for this. Also, the thing that she said about me being the golden child is absolutely not true, but I can see why she would feel that way because in her head she was the one who was sent away because I complained about her and her incessant bullying. A parent deciding to send their kid away is a really big deal, and I know it was rough on my father. But again, that's not his fault or my fault. If he hadn't taken the necessary steps to prevent it, Melissa might have turned out to be a criminal or something because that's the way she was going. Apart from that, I don't really think she was trying to apologize with the postcards and was probably just trying to cover it up by saying that it was supposed to be a genuine apology. I just feel bad for her because her husband turned out to be completely useless and now she has to bail him out for that. She actually came to me and I can't imagine how difficult it must have been for her. So I kind of regret treating her the way that I did. I have everything now and she is nothing, so I can't help but feel sorry for her. That's just who I am as a person. Besides, it has been a long time and I don't feel like holding on to that grudge anymore. But I also don't want to help her out in any way. The most that I can do is give them my sympathy, but I really don't want to hire them or help them out with money. I think it's enough that I even feel bad for her after everything that she put me through. Most people probably wouldn't. Bad enough, the only reason I even feel bad for her right now is because this business was actually supposed to be hers, and now that I'm in a position of power, I'm finally getting back at her and I just feel like it's not right. It might be because of what she said about me being the golden child or maybe just plain old imposter syndrome, but I feel weird about this, so IDA for refusing to hire my ex-fiancé, who eloped with my stepsister, now that they're struggling with money and help them out. Update 1. I didn't have any idea what to do. In the comments here just confused me even more because some of you said that I was doing the right thing by turning them away and the other half said that I had always been the golden child and that is why Melissa started to act out, so this wasn't as helpful as I had thought it was going to be. I decided to talk to my parents because every single time that I have had to face problems in my life I've always approached my parents for advice, and I did the same this time as well. They told me that I had no reason to feel sorry for Melissa because everybody had gone above and beyond to try and make her a better person. But if she wasn't willing to turn over a new leaf at any point in her life, then there was not much that we could do for her. My father told me that he had every intention of letting her take over the business had she behaved herself and been a good daughter, but she failed at everything and made a total mockery out of our family. After that, she would be a fool to expect him to let her take over or even be a part of the family anymore, and that made me feel considerably better because talking to my parents always does, so I'll try not to let myself feel guilty about things that I don't do anymore. Update 2. About 1 week has passed since Melissa showed up at my door, and since her visit to my parents we haven't heard from her. I almost thought that she had gone back to California with Greg until today when she showed up at my workplace to make a scene. It was horrible because she just walked into the place since she had known the ins and outs ever since she was a child and got in without alerting security quite easily. Then she went on to take her place in front of my office and started to shout about how I had stolen this business from right under her nose by pretending to be a good little girl for our parents and constantly being a bootlicker so they would approve of me, and apparently I was responsible for vilifying her by falsely accusing her of bullying me throughout our childhood and even talking my father into sending her to rehab just so I could cement my position as the golden child of the family. She went on to announce that this business was supposed to be hers, but now I was refusing to even let her be a part of it because I was jealous that Greg had chosen her over me, unlike our parents who had always favored me, and since I wasn't used to being looked over I lost my mind and turned our parents against her. When I heard the yelling, I decided to go out and check it out for myself after calling security. I tried to tell her to shut up, but she went on for a good few minutes until she was finally thrown out of the building. I decided to call my dad before calling the cops to get his opinion, and he was furious, so he told me to go right ahead and call the police. Thankfully, when the cops showed up, she was still lurking nearby, probably waiting for me to leave the building so she could yell at me or maybe do something worse like physically attack me. The cops took her away and charged her with trespassing and disturbing the peace, but they're minor charges and she can probably get off with either just a fine or maybe community service worst-case scenario, but it's certainly going on record and that's never good. I told my dad that she had been charged and arrested and expected him to be a little upset about it, but he only seemed exasperated and told me that he was just tired of this and wanted a break from having to deal with her insanity. I honestly feel bad for him because it can't be easy having a daughter like Melissa and being blamed for everything that goes wrong in her life, even though most of the time it's her own fault. Honestly, we have all been really patient. Update 3. Okay, so I think Melissa has returned to California because it's been a couple of days and we haven't heard from her, which is weird because we expected her to lash out at us after her arrest. But my dad asked around and was told that a couple of people saw her heading towards the airport the other day, so I'm assuming that she has left. It's honestly a huge relief that she is gone now because I was genuinely afraid that she was going to try to do something explosive to get our attention next, and that's always bad news. I don't know what she is going to do about the whole situation with Greg now because it seems unlikely that she is going to get help from anyone else after this. I just hope that she finds something to do and gets out of this mess. And no, I'm not even being kind or compassionate right now. I have very selfish reasons to say this, and it's because I know that if she doesn't find a way out of this mess, then she will just come back here with Greg and bother us some more, and I don't want that. So I genuinely hope and pray that either she or Greg finds a job and are able to support themselves. Either way, I don't have to hear from her for a couple of weeks at least, and I believe that this nightmare is over now. Now on to the next story. Story 2. Rich Mill hated me for being poor. She played a prank, calling me the housemate at her party and posted it online to embarrass me. But what my husband did next shut her up. Hi everyone. I'll be referring to my husband as Harry and my mother-in-law as Olivia. I, 28 female, have been married to Harry for about 2 years. Harry, also 28, and I were friends in college, and that's how we know each other. We didn't start dating until after we graduated. We ran into each other at a common friend's party a few years ago and have been together ever since, for almost 4 years including the time that we have been married. Harry and I love each other, and I don't have any regrets about marrying him. But the only thing that I can't stand is his mother. Olivia was a single mother and raised Harry all on her own, and that's great, but she is really arrogant and cold, which is what makes it very difficult for me to like her as a person. She made it clear from the very first day that she didn't approve of me, and I think it has a lot to do with my financial background. I don't come from a rich family, and my parents had to really work hard to provide for me and my 3 sisters. We were quite poor growing up. My dad used to be a janitor, and my mother had to take up several odd jobs to be able to support us. I'm honestly not ashamed of it, and I'm actually quite proud of where I come from, as are all my siblings. Let me just put it out there that we never looked at our parents' jobs as something to be ashamed of or to be embarrassed by. They were honest, hardworking people, and we always have been, still are, and will continue to be extremely proud of them for raising us to be good people just like them. Olivia, however, is quite classist and instantly made a face when I revealed to her that my dad used to be a janitor and my mom would run errands for those who could afford it. That was back when we had dinner with her for the first time, and ever since then, she made it pretty clear to me that I wasn't welcome in her family and she would never accept me as one of her own. She didn't say anything to my face, but she would always keep her distance from me physically, like she couldn't touch me or something, whenever she would invite us for dinner, and even use different silverware and plates for me, which were slightly less pretty than the ones she and her son used. I didn't bring it up because I thought I was overthinking things and I didn't want to make a big deal out of nothing, but then there were a lot of other things too which forced me to come to terms with the fact that Olivia was classist. She would buy me cheap birthday presents, and I knew it because she left the price tag on. For context, Olivia ran her own business and could definitely afford to buy nice presents for people, and she did. She got Harry a very expensive watch one year and got her assistant an all-expenses-paid trip to Bali for 3 days. The very same year, she gifted me a knockoff prod bag which didn't cost more than $85. After that, I realized that I wasn't imagining anything and she most certainly didn't like me. The biggest mistake that I made was not talking to Harry about this back then because I didn't know how to talk to anyone about something so upsetting. I had been discriminated against before, but it was never by someone who I hope to have a relationship with in the future. I actually did admire Olivia before I saw this ugly side, since I want to have a business of my own someday as well, and when Harry told me about his mother, I was quite impressed. My sisters and I are all finance majors. We went to college thanks to student loans and were able to score well enough to bag decent jobs. I work in marketing and advertising, but I really want to build something of my own, and I didn't want a bad relationship with my mother-in-law, which is why I didn't speak up about Olivia before Harry and I got married. I hoped that she would accept me eventually, but it didn't happen, and then it just became too awkward. I finally did speak up a few months after we got married and told Harry that I didn't feel comfortable visiting his mother because she made me feel inferior, and I had a feeling that it had something to do with my family and my dad's profession. He was quite understanding about it and told me that he would speak to his mother and try to clear the air between us. He did live up to it, but it didn't lead anywhere because after he spoke to Olivia about it, she just denied everything vehemently and started crying crocodile tears because she felt attacked and claimed that she had been nothing but warm to me. So this accusation of her being classist was uncalled for. But that did change the way I felt about her and only made me feel like she was trying to manipulate us. So I told Harry that I appreciated his efforts, but I still didn't feel comfortable around her. So we decided that he could stay in touch with her, but I would avoid her, and only when I felt ready would I talk to her. He didn't cut her off but distanced himself, and I knew she hated me for it. Now that we were married, I didn't have much of a choice when it came to her and had to make my peace with it. Olivia and I would meet at family get-togethers, but we wouldn't see each other otherwise, and we were both fine with that arrangement for a while. However, a few days ago she texted me around noon that she was celebrating her 50th birthday, and she wanted me to be present a few hours before the party was supposed to begin, because she wanted to mend things. She told me that I had been right about her and she had kind of been horrible to me in the past, so she wanted to make up to me for it. I agreed to it and showed up early because I was really happy since I felt like she was finally coming around and accepting me as her family. But that turned out to be a bust because as soon as I got there, she told me to go wait in the kitchen for a while. It was confusing, but I did it. In a little while later, she came into the kitchen herself and introduced me as her housemaid to the waitstaff who were there for the party. I was shocked because this was a new low even for her. And to make it all worse, she was recording it and laughing like this was the funniest prank that one could ever play. Everybody else was also quite uncomfortable, and I was so humiliated that I started crying. I ran out of the house and got into my car so I could drive back home. I had told Harry that I was visiting Olivia, but he was busy at work, so he hadn't read that text, and he wasn't going to be at the party until it was supposed to begin. So I came back to an empty house and an empty inbox, which made me feel even more alone, and I cried myself to sleep. I woke up a couple of hours later, and Harry was finally home by then. He was sitting beside me on the bed furiously typing on his phone, and when I asked him why he wasn't at the party, he turned his phone towards me and showed me a video that his mother had posted. It was the video that she had recorded and had captioned it as, "A prank that went wrong." She cut the video off right before I started crying, so it didn't look as bad, but she still posted it only to humiliate me, and I started crying once again. Harry told me not to worry about it because he was trying his best to have it taken down and told me that he would pull out all the stops to make sure that his mother regretted this. She wasn't replying to his messages or picking up his call, probably because she was busy with the party, but he knew that she would call him in a while to ask why he wasn't there yet, and when she would, he promised me that he would teach her a lesson of a lifetime. He most certainly did live up to the promise because about an hour after I woke up, his mother called him, and I can't repeat exactly what he called her, but trust me, it was bad. He ended the call by promising to file a lawsuit against her for what she did to me. After he was done yelling at her on the phone, he apologized to me repeatedly for not doing enough about Olivia when I told him that I wasn't comfortable with her. I honestly didn't blame him because back when I first brought it up with him, I made it seem like it wasn't a big deal, which is why he didn't deal with it that seriously. I also never spoke up about the other incidents that bothered me, and he isn't exactly the most attentive or observant person, so he never picked up on any of that himself either. I can't exactly blame him for not cutting his mother off because he had no idea exactly how horrible she was capable of being. But then on the day of her party, I finally told him everything, and he was furious. He told me that I should have let him know, and I agree, I really should have. He never would have allowed this to go on for so long. He also apologized for falling asleep at the wheel and never noticing how his mother was treating me. We talked things through, and then he called up his lawyer because he wanted to know if there was any legal way that we could get back at her for what she did. Unfortunately, we couldn't file a lawsuit for emotional distress because there weren't exactly any physical repercussions of what she did. So even if he did go after her, there was a good chance that we would end up wasting our time. I told Harry that there was no need for us to go after her anyway and that we could just cut her out of our lives. But he told me that it wasn't good enough for him and he wanted to teach her a lesson. I could tell that he was really angry on my behalf and I loved him for it, so I didn't try to stop him. He didn't do anything that day, but then the next morning he told me that he had contacted his mother and told her that she had 3 days to issue a public apology, not just to me but also to my family, and it had to be in video form, or else he would make sure that all her business associates got to know about the way she had been treating me, and that would pretty much ruin her future because she'd carved a niche for herself as a female entrepreneur. But this wasn't exactly very feminist of her. The negative reputation could potentially ruin her future, so she'd probably have to take this threat very seriously. We are on the 2nd day right now, and I honestly don't feel very good about this. This feels really close to blackmail, and I did tell Harry about it, but he dismissed my worries and told me that this was the only way to teach Olivia a lesson, to make sure that she would never repeat that kind of behavior or try to bother me again. I don't like this idea of letting my husband go after my mother-in-law. Update 1. Hi, as many of you suggested, I sat Harry down after he came back from work and told him about my concerns yet again. I know Olivia is the bad guy here, but I don't want to stoop down to her level just to get back at her, and I told him that I didn't like the idea of him resorting to such tactics only to get her to apologize, and an apology wouldn't even mean anything because she would just be saying it for the sake of it. So I told him that I didn't want him to go through with this and to call it off and tell Olivia that she didn't need to put up any apology and she was free to do whatever she wanted as long as she stayed the heck away from us. Surprisingly, he didn't resist this time around but just broke down into tears, and I had to console him for several minutes before he could finally tell me what he was upset about. As most of you said already, he was overcompensating for not taking things seriously and dealing with the situation properly when I first told about Olivia. I know most of it is my fault because I was so desperate to win her over and accept me even though she hated me, but after watching the video, which has since been deleted, he realized just how deep-rooted Olivia's problems were and felt really guilty. So he started channeling all that guilt into getting back at his mom instead of just listening to me and what I wanted to do, but talking to me made him realize that he was making that same mistake again and not taking me seriously. Probably doesn't help that I'm quite submissive and literally have no idea how to assert myself, but we talked about it and he texted Olivia and told her that there was no need for an apology because now he just didn't want anything to do with her and that was it. I'm actually quite proud of the both of us for dealing with this so well and making sure that it's us versus the problem and not us versus each other. Honestly, Harry and I care very deeply for each other, which is why it was so hard for us to tell one another about the biggest problems. We need to work on that, so we agreed that we are going to look into marriage counseling since we clearly could do with it. I have already started looking, and I hope to start working on our marriage within the next week or so to make sure that these incidents don't repeat ever again. This has been one of the worst experiences of my life, and I don't want to feel the way I felt a couple of days ago ever again. I'm really glad that Harry is cutting Olivia off because I don't think I would have ever been able to see her again and resist the urge to smack all the arrogance out of her. I won't do it, but I hope that someone does. Update 2. A week has passed since the day of the party, and Olivia hadn't tried to talk to us after Harry gave her that ultimatum, and she didn't even reply when he told her that he was calling it off and he didn't need an apology anymore. We knew that something was wrong and she was definitely preparing to do something big because she wasn't one to let this slide. But then days passed and she did nothing, so we kind of forgot about it. However, today she finally turned up at our house. She had her lawyer with her, and when I opened the door, she walked in without even glancing at me, as if I was not even there, and then she started calling out for Harry and told him to come see her in the living room. It was stupid because Harry was in our bedroom, and I was going to go tell him to do that anyway, so she didn't need to take matters into her own hands. When Harry appeared in the living room, she told him to sit down on the couch, and it was really annoying for us because she was acting like this was her house and ordering us around inside our own home. So Harry told her that he was going to do whatever he wanted to, and right now he didn't want to speak to her, so she needed to leave and take her lawyer with her because it didn't scare him. But Olivia didn't budge and insisted that he'd take a seat because he would want to hear this. I was the one who told Harry to just do it because I wanted her out of the house as soon as possible, and it wouldn't happen unless she had said what she wanted to say. I just wanted to get this over with, and if that meant that we would have to listen to Olivia threaten us legally or some other rubbish, I was ready to hear her out, and then she could get the heck out. So then Harry took his place on the couch, and I sat down beside him just to show her who's boss around here, so she could ignore me all she wanted. But this was our house, and she needed to know her place. She still ignored me and then told her lawyer to come forward and start reading the terms of the document that she had prepared, and so he did. Essentially, it just said that she wanted Harry to leave me because otherwise she would write him out of her will and give it all away to other family members, her employees, and charity. It included a list of properties and assets that she had made, probably just to freak him out and make Harry think about what he was losing out on by staying with me. But he seemed unfazed even while the lawyer was going through that list, and it almost appeared like he was bored because he was fiddling with the ring on my finger and not even paying attention to what was being read out. After the reading of the document was complete, Olivia stood there and asked Harry if he had given any thought to what he was going to do now, because if he stayed with me, then he could say goodbye to his inheritance forever. And then the funniest thing happened. Harry stood up, walked towards his mother, and then gave her a big hug, and then he said, "Goodbye, Mom." It was hilarious when her face turned from triumphant to shocked, and I couldn't stop giggling. So then she finally acknowledged my existence and snapped at me. She told me to shut up and started throwing a temper tantrum by calling me several choice words that I will not be repeating here. I didn't even say anything to her and pretended that I couldn't hear her because I knew that's what would piss her off the most. Even Harry didn't argue with her, and after she started screaming at me, he said to me that it was time that we return to our room because this could take a while since his mother was clearly going crazy, and he didn't want to stick around to witness more of her mental breakdown, as it was quite embarrassing. Both of us were speaking to each other pretty normally, like she was not there, and completely ignoring her wild screaming and cursing. Both of us got up to go back to our room to piss her off, but then she took it too far and started accusing me of being a gold digger. She said that she never should have approved of our marriage and that she should have known that I was only after Harry for his money, probably since my dad was too much of a loser to earn some for himself. That was out of line because she has no idea how hard my dad has worked for us, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from us. I didn't argue, but I just told her that my husband was literally rejecting her in spite of all her money today, so I was anything but a gold digger. I was a working woman. I didn't take any money from my husband and did everything on my own, so she had no idea what she was talking about. Then I told her to get out of my house before I called the police and had her escorted out. She finally left, but her visit had already left a bad taste in our mouths. It was an unpleasant visit, but we got a lot of things out of the way, and she knows not to pick on us, so hopefully she will keep that in mind and leave us alone. Update 3. Hey guys. So I'm back here because Olivia did something really nasty and low, and I can't believe that she thought she could get away with this. About 2 weeks have passed since she visited us, and because she didn't do anything or try to talk to us after that, Harry and I assumed that this chapter was finally done with and we could resume our normal lives. Clearly not, because I just got a call from my parents about an hour ago, and they were telling me that Olivia had paid them a visit and it was not good. She barged into their house and insulted them, calling them terrible parents who raised a gold-digging and conniving B-word like me. She said a lot of other things as well about me, but that's not even what I'm offended about. She told my mother that if she had spent more time at home actually raising us instead of running errands and trying to earn money, then maybe we would have turned out better, and of course, she did insult my dad about his profession once again and said that she never should have allowed her only son to marry into a family like ours. Knowing that my dad was so used to cleaning up other people's trash, it was no surprise that his own daughters were the filthiest. My parents were almost in tears when they were telling me about all the things that she had said, and I just couldn't hold back my anger. I still can't. Even thinking about her yelling at my parents in their house makes my blood boil. I'm at work right now, so I can't exactly do anything about it, but as soon as my work for the day is done, I'm heading over to Olivia's house and ripping her a new one because she definitely needs to be taken down. I texted Harry about it as soon as I got to know about what happened with my parents, but he is busy with work, so he hasn't replied yet. I honestly don't want him to accompany me, but I have informed him so it doesn't take him by surprise when Olivia calls him up crying about all the things that I said to her. Update 4. Hi, so I'm currently at home. I came back from Olivia's house about 3 hours ago, and I swear it was incredibly satisfying to shout at her and let her know exactly what I thought of her. She didn't seem surprised when I showed up at her place and opened the door herself. She was smirking at me, and that's when I lost it. She didn't even have to say anything to make me mad because I was already fuming. I pushed her aside and went inside the house, and then I asked her if she had paid my parents a visit and if she had indeed said all those horrible things to them. When she said yes, she sounded very pleased with herself, and I wanted to wipe that smirk right off her face. So I screamed at her as loudly as I could, and I swear I felt the house shake. I asked her how dare she, and she was so taken aback by the sheer volume that she had to take a couple of steps back. It's quite comical now that I think about it, but she was really shocked because I'm generally a quiet and soft-spoken person, and I try not to yell as much as I can. I even kind of surprised myself by how loudly I was screaming at her. I went on to call her a hypocrite and a sad excuse of a human being. I told her that she had completely failed at being a mother because she couldn't even try to put Harry's happiness over her own, which is why she was going out of her way to break us apart. But unfortunately, that was not going to happen because Harry and I loved each other because we were capable of it, unlike her, who didn't even know what that word meant. It was a low blow. But then I told her that I was glad that her husband passed away when Harry was little because he probably wouldn't have been able to survive living with her. I called her worse than whatever disease that he had, and that's when she started crying. But I wasn't about to stop just yet, so I went on yelling at her for quite a few more minutes. I didn't stop until I finally ran out of steam. By then, she was sobbing inconsolably, and I was quite happy about it because it was very satisfying for me to see her break down like that. She had made me feel bad about myself and my family, and worst of all, she had insulted my parents for no fault of theirs. She deserved this. A few minutes after she started crying, I stormed out of the house and came back home, and about an hour after I came back, Harry also returned. He told me that he got off work earlier, but he didn't come back home directly since he thought that I would be at Olivia's house. So he headed over there, but when he reached, I had already left. I'd driven away just a couple of minutes before he got there. The door to his mother's house was already open, and he knew that I had been there because when he walked in, Olivia was curled up on the couch and crying her heart out. I thought that Harry was going to be mad at me for making his mother cry like that since she never really expressed her emotions, not by crying at least, but he told me that he was proud of me for finally taking a stand for myself and he was happy that I wasn't letting anyone walk over me. He gave me a hug after that and apologized for whatever his mother had said to my parents, and then he told me what he had talked to his mother about before he came back here. It was a short conversation, but that was probably one of the last times that Harry was going to talk to Olivia because he told me that we were going to have no contact with her, and if she tries to mess with us again, then we are filing for a restraining order. Anyway, apparently when Harry asked her about what I had said to her, she repeated everything, including what I said about his father, and Olivia expected him to defend her and finally say that he was going to leave me because I had taken things too far. But he disappointed his mom yet again and told her that even though it was his father that I was talking about, he didn't find it offensive because Olivia had said much worse things about my family, so she kind of had this one coming. Then he and Olivia got into a fight again, where she accused him of not caring about her and taking my side just because I was pretending to be soft and innocent. But he told her that that was not the case at all, and the only reason that he was on my side here was because I was right. I had never gone out of my way to hurt her or make her feel inferior. It was she who used to do that to me, and even when she was confronted about it and given a chance to improve, she didn't take it. Instead, she turned it around on me and tried to gaslight me, so now she couldn't complain because she had enough opportunities to make things right with me. But she didn't, and now that I was finally standing up for myself, there was no way that she could victimize herself and make me look like the villain. Then he walked out of his mother's house even while she was screaming for him to come back and demanded that he leave me. But he told me that he had made his choice and he didn't care about anything else. It was sweet, and we had a cute little moment. We are still going to continue marriage counseling as it's going well, but now we know for sure that we have each other's backs forever, and that's all I ever really wanted anyway. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Wife's secret phone with text showed she was cheating on me with my brother. I told my still, but my family is furious and demands I stay silent to save my brother's reputation. So I, 30M, have an older half-brother. I'll call him Jerry, 35M. My dad had Jerry with his ex-wife, but he left her when Jerry was just 6 months old. My mom told me that they got divorced because they were just not compatible. However, my dad continued to play an active role in Jerry's life, and he shared custody of him with his ex-wife. 2 years after his divorce, he met my mom, and they were married within a year. They had a pretty fairy tale kind of romance because my mom says that she was in a coffee shop, and he was walking outside when he first laid eyes on her, and apparently it was love at first sight for my dad. He actually went inside the coffee shop to ask my mother out. After dating for a couple of months, he proposed, and she instantly said yes because she knew that he was her soulmate and they were meant to be together. So far so good, right? Unfortunately, my dad ended up cheating on my mom about a year into their marriage with one of his coworkers. He confessed it to her out of guilt, and my mother decided to forgive him and stay with him. They went for marriage counseling and fixed things. My mother was convinced that having a baby would solve all their problems, which is how I came into existence. My mother thinks this is a very romantic story, but honestly, I just think that my parents are very dysfunctional as a couple and not the perfect version of themselves that they present to the world. Keeping up appearances and pretending to be perfect means a lot to them. That's for sure. Even when I was a child, they would put on a show of being madly in love whenever people would come over, and everyone would shower them with praise about how they had managed to keep the spark alive even after years of being married. But the truth was that, like any other married couple, they were pretty normal and didn't constantly kiss or hug each other when they were at home, and definitely not in the honeymoon phase like they pretended to be. It was just a show that they were put on to like the perfect couple, and I realized it only when I was older. This pressure to appear perfect also extended to me, which is why I was forced to enroll in a bunch of classes so I would be good at everything. I was constantly busy as a child and barely ever got time to relax. It wasn't until high school that I started protesting, and they allowed me to spend some time at home, just unwind. My dad had made sure that both Jerry and I were straight-A students and excelled at everything that we participated in academically or otherwise. It was no big surprise that Jerry got into one of the finest medical schools in the country, and I ended up in an Ivy League college for a business degree. There was a lot of pressure on us, which is probably why both of us are quite successful now, and while I do not recommend going this way for other parents, I am lucky that it worked out for me. However, my dad also believed that he had the right to control our personal lives as well, and my mother was no better because she always agreed with whatever my father said. So, when Jerry turned 30, my dad told him that he was supposed to start looking for a woman he could marry and settle down with because he was getting older and soon enough he would be out of options. Jerry was dating his now wife, Tina, 34F. At the time that my dad sat him down and had that talk with him, they walked together and were in an on-again, off-again relationship for almost 5 years, so they had known each other for quite a long time and my dad knew about it. But after that talk with my dad, Jerry decided to get serious about Tina, and within a year he had proposed to her and they got married 3 years ago. Last year, they even had a baby together. Jerry and I are not close, so I didn't hear about any of this from him, but I did get to know about it from my dad when he had the same conversation with me earlier this year. He told me that he had had this conversation with my brother, and now it was time to tell me the same thing so I would get serious and have a family of my own. He had actually boasted about how he had been the one to convince Jerry to get married to Tina, and he was as happy as could be with a wife and a son, and he wanted the same for me. He was clueless about how spectacularly it would blow up in his face later. My dad had brought up his own affair from before I was born and told me that at the time he had been really unfulfilled but committed to my mother, and having a child is what grounded him, and he would recommend the same for me. I took whatever he said with a pinch of salt because I wasn't going to let my father give me relationship advice of all things. Lucky for him, he got to believe that he had changed my life as well because I had been planning to propose to my girlfriend anyway. Carla, 30F, and I have been together for the past 3 years and have been living together for 2 of those years, so I had been planning to propose to her anyway, and 2 months after the conversation with my dad, I finally did it on the day of my birthday and she accepted it and we got married 3 months ago. I thought it was all going well, but obviously if it actually was, then I wouldn't be here. Carla and I, like I said, had only been married for 2 months, but unfortunately, I had to file for divorce about a week ago after I found out that she had been having an affair with Jerry ever since we got engaged. It was a huge shock to me, and I wouldn't even have found out if I didn't accidentally stumble upon her burner phone. I couldn't find some piece of clothing that belonged to me, and I was looking for it all over the house. She was not at home at the time, and I thought that maybe she must have kept it with her own clothes accidentally, so I decided to go through her clothes as well. When I was going through them, I felt something in one of the pockets of a particular pair of jeans. I took it out and found another phone. It was not password protected, thankfully, and there was only one text thread on it. I noticed that the phone number looked familiar, and sure enough, it was Jerry's phone number. I was horrified, and yet I continued to scroll up. The chat started about 3 weeks after I had proposed to her, and they were really flirting back and forth like two teenagers. They had confessed that they were in love with each other a few months after our engagement, and both of them were promising each other that they would stick it out no matter what. The plan was to stay with their respective partners until my nephew turned 5 and didn't need his mother as much as he would right now, and then both of them filed for divorce and came clean to me and Tina about the affair. Jerry would get shared custody of his son, and they would leave us so they could be together. I was horrified to read all of that, and even more so when I realized that the two of them were planning to carry on this farce for 5 years. It was deranged, and I immediately started packing my stuff up so I could leave the house. I knew that Carla wouldn't be home until late the day because she was out with her friends, so I took the time and packed all my things which would fit, took as many screenshots as I could of the messages on her phone, and then drove to a hotel a little out of town. I didn't leave any message for her or whatever, just left the burner phone out on our bed, and I knew that she would know what it meant. I was sick to my stomach because even though Jerry and I had never been the best of friends, he and I had never really been on bad terms either. From the messages that I had read, I had figured out that he had made a move on Carla literally the night of our engagement. I had proposed on the day of my birthday party, so my friends and family had been there, and Jerry had been there as well because he was still family. Apparently, he had come to her, and they had made out in the backyard of our house while I was attending to the guests and socializing with them. I had noticed that Carla had been missing for some time that night, but I didn't think much of it because I just figured that she had probably left to freshen up her makeup or something. But while reading the texts, I realized that they made several references and would keep talking about the night of our engagement and the rendezvous. It was disgusting because here I was celebrating us while she smashed faces with my married brother, who also happens to be the father of a child. I called up my lawyer that evening and told him that I wanted to file for divorce, so he had to start preparing the paperwork required. I honestly just wanted to make sure that Carla didn't get anything out of the divorce, like alimony or even a settlement, because I was in a much higher paying position than her, and she would definitely try to use that for her own gain. In fact, while reading those texts, I even realized that she was looking down on my profession while saying that she would much rather be with a doctor than with some glorified accountant. For the record, I have my own business that I started a few years ago with 2 of my business school buddies. I handle the finances and we are doing pretty well, so I don't understand why she would want to look down upon us when she herself is a corporate employee. I always knew that she was materialistic, but this is just sad. They had made a lot of fun of me behind my back in those texts, and I had started to hate Jerry. So I knew that sooner or later I would tell Tina and make sure that she knew she was married to a nasty, lying cheater and left him. I was just building up the courage required to do it because I was in a very dark place. I had blocked both Carla and Jerry everywhere as soon as I found out about the other phone because I didn't want to listen to any of their BS excuses or even give them a chance to explain themselves. I was just done. So, 2 days after I had left my house and had moved into the hotel, I had expected that at least one of them would have the sense to apologize so I would go easy on them. But instead, what I received was a phone call from my father on the 3rd day. He started off by telling me that he had heard about the affair since Carla had found out that I knew, as I had left the phone out on the bed, and she had contacted Jerry to talk to him about this because I wasn't answering her calls and she didn't know where to find me, and Jerry couldn't get to me either, so he talked to my dad, and my father finally was able to reach out to me. He told me that he was sorry that this had happened, and I thought that he was being understood. But just after he said that he felt really bad about what was happening to me, he told me that he would really appreciate it if I kept this all to myself and didn't talk about it just yet. I already knew the answer as to why he wanted that, but I still asked him and decided to record what he was about to say. He told me that he had talked to Jerry, and both of them were afraid of the same thing, that I would talk to Tina and tell her about his affair. My dad told me that since I was not willing to speak to Jerry and had blocked him, he felt like it was his responsibility to tell me that neither he nor my mother wanted me to tell Tina about this. They said that unlike me, Jerry had to think about a child, and it would ruin his life if I told Tina that he had been cheating on her with Carla. Tina came from a very well-connected family, and it was likely that she would use her power and influence to make sure that she had the most sway in the custody arrangement, and Jerry just couldn't bring himself to accept it. So through my dad, all of them were requesting me to keep my mouth shut and not tell Tina the truth. They even said that they had spoken to Jerry and had made him promise that he would stop seeing Carla, and if I wanted to, I could patch things up with my wife and make it work because that's what my mother had done in their marriage, and it had turned out to be beautiful in spite of my dad's mistake. So my parents thought that I should go the same way and forgive Carla and Jerry for their stupid little mistake because both of them were really sorry. I thought it was a bold move for my parents and Jerry to try and convince me that it was not a good idea for me to tell Tina about the affair, especially after he had screwed me over without batting an eye. I couldn't believe that they even had the audacity to expect that I would agree to this, and instantly hung up because I was done recording and I didn't even want to entertain the conversation or dignify it with a response. I was fuming because I knew that my parents had always cared deeply about how they appeared to other people. But this was madness, and there was no way that they were actually expecting me to keep my mouth shut. I wish I could say that I was surprised, but the cheating apple doesn't fall far from the cheating tree. So of course, my dad wanted me to keep quiet and not breathe a word of this to Tina so Jerry could get away with all of this. They wanted me to brush it all under the rug and go back to pretending like everything was fine solely for the sake of keeping up the appearance that we were a perfectly normal and functional family for other people. To suggest that I forgive Carla and Jerry and patch things up with her so everything can go back to normal and we can carry on like this never happened requires some real guts. I was furious that they had thought that saying this would be a good idea, and in the heat of the moment, I decided to text Tina out of anger and get back at Jerry for what he had done to me. I reached out to her through text and told her everything that I knew, including that Jerry had asked my dad to instruct me to keep all this a secret from her. For good measure, I also added the screenshots that I had taken of the messages that I had found on the burner phone, and then I turned my phone off. I didn't want anybody to be able to contact me because I knew that things were going to go down now, and I didn't want any part of it. A couple of hours later, when I thought it was appropriate, I finally turned my phone back on, and I found that it was full of messages and missed calls from my family. Everyone was really mad at me, but I only cared about what Tina had to say about all of this. So the first text that I checked after turning my phone back on was hers. She hadn't said much, just said that she was thankful that I had chosen to help her out and tell her the truth, and that she knew what to do now. It sounded a little ominous, but I soon found out what she meant by that from the other text messages. Everyone, and by everyone I mean my mom, my dad, and a couple of other family members, was clamoring about how Tina and Jerry got into a huge fight after I sent that message and that Tina had left to go live with her parents with their son in the aftermath of the fight. It has also become abundantly clear to me that divorce was very much on the table for them and Tina might file for full custody, which was not good for Jerry because she would definitely try her best to cut his time shorter with his son even if he does get shared custody. And I don't know why, but my family is blaming me. If they didn't want any of this to happen, they probably should have taught Jerry not to cheat. But they didn't, so this is on him. I received a lot of angry messages and have been for the past couple of days ever since I sent Tina the text and she left him. I think it's really unfair that everyone is blaming me, but it's even more unfair to claim that apparently I ruined a happy family. I don't even understand where that is coming from because if they were such a happy family, then Jerry wouldn't cheat, but whatever. I know that I'm right, but I still feel kind of weird because I've heard that Jerry is really miserable now, and I don't feel comfortable that he might not get full custody. With Carla and I, it's fine because we didn't have kids, but for them it's kind of different. Aita for telling my brother's wife that he was having an affair with my wife? Update 1. Okay, so it's been close to a week since I sent that message and Tina left the house, and things have become relatively quieter now, in the sense that nobody is constantly messaging me and reminding me that this is all my fault, mostly because I have blocked everyone. I really don't need that sort of negativity in my life anymore. The only person that can still contact me is Carla since I unblocked her because the divorce proceedings are about to begin. But she is using that window to try and talk to me and explain that she wasn't thinking straight and that she is apologetic for cheating on me. I don't know what she hopes to accomplish with this, but it's not really working. I don't feel bad for her. I don't even feel bad about what is happening. I think it's great that she cheated because it just saved me from wasting my time with her. I can't imagine being married to her for a year or more and then finding out that she had been cheating on me all along, or worse, letting her plan succeed and then being together for 5 years before finding out that she had been having an affair. I'm trying to put a positive spin on this and trying to come to terms with the fact that she was never the right one for me because somebody who can agree to marry me and then go make out with my half-brother, that person can never be my soulmate. I was wrong about her, and I'm glad that I was. I'm still living in the hotel, and nobody has been able to find me yet, which is something that I'm really thankful for because I don't know what I would do if they were able to track me down. I know it's only a matter of time before they do find out since there are not many hotels in this area, and they know that I'm not in any of the places in the city. I've been working from here and it's been lonely and strange, but there's not much that I can do about it. The only thing that I hope works out for me is the divorce. She has already been served, but she hasn't responded to it yet, and I guess she's probably just holding out hope that I might change my mind because of her consistent begging. It's optimistic of her, but it's not going to happen. Update 2. Hey guys, so 3 days since the last update, and sure enough, my dad and Jerry were able to trace me. They went through every hotel in the city and realized that I wasn't in any of them. So they started looking for me outside of town and found my car in the parking lot of this hotel. I had already informed the front desk staff that if somebody came looking for me, they were not supposed to tell them that I was here, and so when my dad and Jerry confronted them about it, they said that nobody by my name was here in the hotel. But my dad and Jerry had already seen my car in the parking lot. So they knew that the staff were lying and started throwing a tantrum in the lobby itself. They started screaming and hurling cuss words at other receptionists, and they were forced to call me down to deal with this mess. Once I came down, security escorted both of them outside, and I went out to talk to them. I had no idea what they even wanted to discuss with me because the damage was already done and Tina knew the truth. My dad and Jerry told me that they had come up with a solution and a way for me to make up for what I had done. They told me that I was going to be called to testify against Tina in court, and all I had to do was say a few things to make Tina look like an unstable wife and mother, which is why Jerry cheated on her, and that way Jerry would get full custody. They told me that things were not looking good for him because along with cheating, Tina also had a lot of other complaints against him that made him look like a bad father, like he was mostly not at home, but now she knew that he was out with Carla, and then there were other things too, like he claimed that he loved his son, but he would never do anything for him. All the baby duties like changing diapers and feeding him fell to Tina, and no matter how much she requested him, he would just not do it because he would always claim to be too tired. Not only that, he would also not do any of the chores around the house, and while she had been fine with doing it all herself before the baby, she couldn't do it anymore, and she wanted to just get the heck out of this marriage. And honestly, I don't understand why they thought that telling me this would work. It just convinced me that I did the right thing and that Tina was better off without him. Besides, it was entitled of them to expect any help from me at all after screwing me over, especially when it came to something like this. They wanted me to lie about Tina so that they would get full custody. I mean, it was ridiculous to even expect that I would agree to do it. I told them that I didn't want to do it and that they meant nothing to me, so I didn't have to make up for anything. Then I walked away without even bothering to wait for a response because I knew that they could change my mind about this. I also instructed the security person to have them thrown out because I did not want them anywhere here, and I mentioned how dangerous they were, so that was enough. They got kicked off the hotel property. But I still had to apologize for their behavior. The only reason they didn't get the cops called on them was because they didn't want any bad press associated with them. Otherwise, they definitely would have called the police and had my dad and Jerry arrested. Update 3. So it's been 2 days since Dad and Jerry showed up at my hotel. I haven't heard back from them after that, but Carla has been texting me a lot more now. We have set the date for the first meeting with a court-appointed mediator, and it's coming up in a week. She isn't even contesting the divorce, so I don't know why she keeps texting me. I haven't even opened her chat because I don't have the bandwidth to deal with all of this drama anymore. I know it'll just be the same old, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this to you." If you ask me, it's all BS because if she really was sorry, then she would have tried to at least make more of an effort to contact me. She would have called me at the very least because she knows that I'm not much of a texting person, or better yet, she might not have cheated at all if she knew that I didn't deserve this. Up until a few days ago, she was limiting herself to 2 texts per day, but right now she's texting me almost every hour. I just haven't found the energy or mental strength to open the chat and see what she has to say, but I think I'll do it soon because it might be something important. Update 4. Alright, so this update is coming just 2 hours after the last one, and I know it's pretty soon, but I checked the messages that Carla had been sending to me. I found out that she had apparently ended things with Jerry. They had a discussion recently, and she found out that for him things had been purely physical, and all the promises that he had made to her were all things that he just said for the sake of it. She's obviously very disappointed about it because she, unlike him, was serious about them, had actually started falling for him. She told me that she was very sorry about everything that you had put me through and that to make up for it, she was not going to be contesting the divorce or even trying to get anything as settlement or alimony because she knew that she didn't deserve it. So that's one problem solved at least. I won't have to go through some long-drawn process and fight for myself. I didn't reply to it because I didn't know what to say. It's sad. But she kind of had it coming. What was she even thinking getting involved with a married man with a child, especially when she was getting married herself? It was quite stupid of her, but it all worked out well for me, so I don't have any complaints. I'm honestly glad that I checked out those messages because this just means that I'll have to work a lot harder on the divorce than I thought I would have to. I forwarded all those texts to my lawyer and even saved them as screenshots in case I need them later. Update 5. Hey. So it's been a couple of months since I posted here, but I have been really busy. The divorce and everything took a lot less time once the waiting period was over, and in our state we only have to wait for 90 days, so once that was over it was a relatively straightforward process and Carla only got to keep things that she had bought for herself. Well, got everything else, I got the house, so I moved back in. She got her car, and since we hadn't been married for a long time, our finances were separate anyway, so there was nothing to do with that. Jerry and Tina are in the middle of their divorce, and the custody is getting pretty nasty from what I heard. It's sad for my nephew, but Tina has told me that I'm allowed to see him. That's a huge victory for me because I really like the little kid, and I hope to have one of my own someday, and definitely will, but probably not with Carla anyway. I'm trying to get my life back on track, and so far it's going well. I just hope it continues to go well afterward as well. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Dulu best friend tried to seduce my fiancée and ruin our wedding by claiming he got her pregnant. So I had her husband serve her divorce papers in front of everyone. My BFF, Samantha, who's 25, and I, at 24, have been tight buds for nearly 8 years. We clicked from the get-go and have been like glue ever since. Sure, we had our tiny spats at the beginning, but nothing major. However, in the last 4 or 5 years we've had a couple of tiffs, and the latest one is the biggest. Normally, my friend is awesome. Always by my side, super nice, and an excellent listener. We both don't hold grudges, and unlike me, who tends to get fed up with people quickly, I have never felt that way about her in our entire friendship. But there has always been this one issue. When she's had a few drinks, she gets super flirty with any guy in her vicinity, which seriously weirds me out because she's got a significant other. Some of our mutual friends have even dropped remarks like, "Isn't she married?" Or, "Does her husband know she acts like that?" This making her look kind of foolish, and it's not cool. Around 4 or 5 years back, she met her husband, Kyle. Their relationship had a bumpy start, but they managed to buy a house, get engaged, and tie the knot a couple of summers ago. Things took a turn. My best friend cheated on her partner not just once but twice, with 2 of my guy best friends, guys I'm always hanging out with while she was away from him at my place. Sneaky, right? All this happened while I was sleeping at the same house, both on separate occasions but in the same summer. The first time she came clean about it, but the second time she tried to keep it on the down low. I had this gut feeling that something fishy went down because she was acting all strange about it, so I went straight to the guy involved, and he spilled the beans. He even showed me texts where she was practically begging him to keep things hush-hush. When I confronted her, she tried to play it off like he took advantage of her. But come on, 2 of my closest guy friends, both times when she was at my place and all behind my back? That was a lot to swallow. I had this gut feeling that something went down, so I asked the guy, and he spilled the beans, showing me texts where she was practically begging him to keep things quiet. When I confronted her, she tried to say he took advantage of her. But we had screenshots of her talking to him saying it was consensual, so I got really mad. She accused one of my good friends of something he didn't do. I told her she put me in a weird spot, and I wasn't happy about it. These are the 2 friends I see all the time, and she made it awkward for us to hang out since she cheated on her fiancé with him. I let her know it was really wrong to accuse him of that when we had text of her saying she wanted to hook up with him. She kind of brushed it off and said it wouldn't happen again, barely acknowledging what she did wrong on a lot of levels. Then she acted like nothing ever happened, taking zero accountability. I stopped inviting her to hang out with most of my guy friends. It got tricky because she asked me to be the maid of honor at her wedding, and her cheating on her fiancé was really bothering me. I felt bad for him but also didn't want to betray her. I guess I wasn't thinking straight. She never brought up the cheating again and kind of acted like it never happened. It was like she disconnected from the fact that she did it. For some reason, she started trusting everyone who knew about the cheating to never spill the beans to her partner, and even invited my 2 guy friends to hang out around her and her husband. I know, it might not sound great, but at this point I was going to be her MOH. I was trying to think the best of her and hoping that this was all in the past. I genuinely wanted her to be happy, so I just went along with her story that nothing happened and tried to move on for the sake of our friendship and her wedding. I was just hoping that no one else would spill the beans. Also, when we used to go out, she would still look for attention from guys when she was drinking, but it was mostly harmless, like flirting or dancing, as far as I could tell. Nothing serious. The most she did was try to get one of my guy friends, the same one she hooked up with, to spend the night with her again. I shut that down immediately, and nothing happened after that. It was kind of annoying, though, because I ended up having to watch over her when she was drunk, just to make sure she wouldn't actually cheat on her husband. It felt like I was parenting my BFF to not make any mistakes again. Jumping ahead to about 4 months ago, we went out for dinner and drinks. We got pretty drunk and headed back to my place, where I lived with my boyfriend, Van, of 2 years. At one point, he was upstairs working out with the door closed, and I left my best friend sleeping in the guest room while I went down to the basement to watch some TV and do my laundry. The next day, my boyfriend called me after my best friend left and said she did something really strange that made him uncomfortable. While I was downstairs on the phone, I asked him, already feeling tense about what she had done this time. So, apparently, while Van was working out in his boxers, Samantha just barged in without being invited and started talking to him about his workouts. At first, he thought she might be looking for me, so he told her that I was in the basement, but she brushed it off. She had lost some weight recently and began asking him, "Do you think I look good?" She even lifted her shirt to show her abs. Then, according to him, she went on the floor to do some workout moves, saying, "My ass looks so much better since I've been working out," and kept trying to get him to say that she looks good. He found it really strange and didn't want to give her the validation she seemed to be looking for. He thought she was fishing hard for compliments, so he suggested she go downstairs and find me. When he told me about it, I was furious with her. I knew she could act this way when she was drunk, but I never imagined she would do something like this with my boyfriend. First off, when you see someone in their boxers, wouldn't common sense tell you to leave the room immediately? And secondly, why would you even care about what your best friend's boyfriend thinks about your appearance or your butt? It just didn't make any sense. I decided to confront her the next day by inviting her to my place when my boyfriend was out. When I started to tell her about what my boyfriend had told me, she started apologizing, saying she had no idea why she acted like that when she was drunk and all that. I told her that I needed space and that I didn't know how I could ever trust her again. The next day, she totally changed her story. She started saying my boyfriend was lying and exaggerating, and she thought I would have seen the conversation as harmless. But seriously, in what world is telling your best friend's boyfriend how nice your ass looks considered harmless? My boyfriend has always been an amazing partner, and he was scared to tell me about what happened because he knew it would hurt me to see her act like that toward him. He has no reason to lie. He's never betrayed my trust. On the other hand, she has a history of this behavior, so my gut told me to believe my boyfriend. I was really upset that she changed her story and wouldn't take any responsibility, especially since this wasn't the first time she had acted like this when she was drunk. I even told her a list of times she had done this with other guys who were taken or married, pointing out her pattern of behavior. Instead of owning up to it, she kept playing the victim, saying I was being rude for bringing up her past mistakes. She claimed she didn't know where to go from here because she feels uncomfortable around my boyfriend now. This infuriated me because she was trying to flip it around on him, even though she was the one who made him feel uncomfortable and put him in a weird position. At that point, my feelings were all over the place, but one thing was clear. I didn't want to continue the friendship unless she acknowledged her problem, sought help, and tried to understand why she acted that way when she was drunk. I shared with her that I was fed up with constantly feeling like I had to parent her, especially to prevent her from cheating. It had become exhausting, and I expressed my frustration at her tendency to blame everyone but herself for the issues we were facing. I let her know that this pattern had strained our friendship. The conversation turned into a heated exchange as I confronted her about her actions. I emphasized that I couldn't tolerate the lack of accountability and needed her to acknowledge the impact of her behavior on our friendship. She began to then blame me, asserting that I was a bad friend for not believing her side of the story. It quickly escalated into a tense exchange where she accused me of not being supportive and understanding. In the midst of this blame-shifting, the tension reached a boiling point. Frustrated and hurt, she abruptly stormed off, saying that she never wanted to speak to me ever again. It was a difficult moment since she had been my best friend for the last 8 years, but her behavior was now starting to affect my boyfriend, which I couldn't just let her get away with. I accepted her decision and didn't bother contacting her after that. On a Saturday night, while I was out with my friends, at 2 a.m., her husband texted me, calling my boyfriend a scumbag for exaggerating. He implied that I was insecure because his wife had been working out, suggesting that I was jealous of her new body. He accused me and my boyfriend of making a big deal out of nothing and told me that I'd been a bad friend to her. Just to set the record straight, I was extremely confident and had always been secure with myself. I texted him back, saying, "Maybe one day she will be honest with you and tell you what you don't know." He replied back immediately, asking what I meant by that. I decided to ignore his message, as it wasn't my business anymore. The next day, unexpectedly, the doorbell rang. To my and my boyfriend's surprise, we found my best friend's husband, Kyle, standing there. His presence was unexpected, but we welcomed him inside regardless. With a palpable tension in the room, Kyle had come to talk to me about the text I had sent him the previous night. He asked me to tell him the truth about why I had sent him that text and if it had any truth to it. I nodded slowly, and Kyle pressed me to reveal more. I was a bit nervous about telling him the truth since I felt a bit uncomfortable telling him all the indiscretions that my best friend had done in the past. At that moment, my boyfriend stepped in and started to explain to him about what had happened between him and Samantha. He told him how uncomfortable he was when she came into the room without his permission while he was wearing his boxers and working out alone. She wouldn't leave him alone and kept trying to show him her abs. It made him extremely uncomfortable, and he had told me. Kyle looked shocked hearing this and told us that he had heard a completely different version of the incident from her and had no idea that my boyfriend was in his boxers when she barged in. He looked embarrassed and fumbled an apology as he sat there in disbelief. I suddenly felt bad for the guy. Here he was, trying to apologize to us for his wife's behavior when he had no idea how his wife had behaved much worse with other guys. I took a deep breath and decided to spill the entire truth to him. I told Kyle about her past indiscretions, detailing the occasions when she had cheated on him with other guys that I was friends with. Kyle looked at me, dumbstruck, and asked me if I was sure that Samantha had gone so far as to sleep with them. I nodded and showed him the screenshots that I had kept, which proved that she had slept with these men while married to Kyle. Then Kyle, still shocked, asked me why I had not told him about these incidents before. This was a very valid question, and I started to apologize to him for keeping these things a secret, explaining that I didn't want to betray her trust since she had been my best friend for all these years. I told him how every time we went drinking, I would have to parent her around so she wouldn't end up sleeping with someone else. The revelation hit him hard, and the weight of the truth became apparent in his eyes. He expressed gratitude for my honesty but made it clear that there was no way he could continue living with her after learning about these betrayals. I understood his point of view. He told me that he had a lot to think about and asked me to not tell my best friend anything about his visit. I nodded in agreement. He then thanked me for being upfront and left. It was a surreal and intense moment, realizing that my best friend's actions had led to the end of her marriage. In the aftermath of that tumultuous period, I never talked to Samantha or Kyle at all. From what I could gather, they appeared to still be together, indicating that their marriage hadn't crumbled despite the revelations. Personally, I decided to channel my energy and attention towards my own life and career, consciously distancing myself from the complexities that had defined that chapter. Fast forward to just 2 months ago, when a delightful twist unfolded in my life. My boyfriend decided to take our relationship to the next level. In a heartwarming and unexpected turn of events, he proposed to me, marking the beginning of a new and hopefully more serene chapter in our journey together. It was the happiest day of my life, and I posted our engagement pictures with my new ring to my social media. My friends started congratulating me, and I guess some of our mutual friends might have informed Samantha as well. She called me multiple times in the middle of the night, and when I picked up, thinking she might have called to congratulate me, she instead started yelling at me that I couldn't marry my fiancé. I was taken aback by her words. She continued to yell, saying that I needed to break up with him, as I couldn't have a happy ending after choosing him over her. My fiancé, who was sleeping next to me, woke up groggy, asking me what happened. I put her on speaker so he could hear how crazy she sounded. She continued saying how my fiancé was a piece of shit and that she was going to destroy his life for what he did to our friendship. Fed up with Samantha's angry rant, I had enough. I told her she was going too far, and I hung up, feeling irritated and not willing to put up with more of her drama. The next morning, I woke up to a bunch of angry messages from Samantha, all about how she would wreck our wedding. Feeling a bit uneasy, I decided to call Kyle. He shared that she had been acting super agitated since the previous night, but he had no clue why. I spilled the beans about my engagement and filled him in on what Samantha had yelled at me over the phone. I even sent him screenshots of her furious messages. After checking them out, Kyle finally said, "This is why she's been so worked up since last night." Perplexed, I asked him what he meant. He explained how she spent the night drinking by herself, mumbling about having to do something, but he had no idea until now that it was connected to our conversation. Worried about her threats, I told him I couldn't take them lightly, considering her history, and there was a good chance she might show up at my wedding to cause trouble. This is when Kyle revealed that for the past few months, he had been secretly meeting with his lawyer and moving his assets or signing them off to his parents. He wanted to divorce Samantha, but before that, he needed to be ready since she would definitely play dirty to get her hands on his money. Even though there was a chance that she might never win any alimony, she had cheated on him and he had proof. He still didn't want to take any chances. This is why these last 4 months, he had been rearranging his assets, waiting for the right opportunity to officially divorce her. He told me that if Samantha wanted to show up at my wedding and make a scene, then he wanted to teach her a lesson by handing in the divorce papers to her. I was a bit uncomfortable at first with this, but my boyfriend, who had been overhearing our conversation, readily agreed with Kyle. The plan would only be set in motion if Samantha showed up to our wedding to create a ruckus. Last week, we finally had our small wedding at the church. It was a cozy gathering with close friends and family, and we felt really happy exchanging our vows. During the ceremony, I kept a lookout, kind of expecting Samantha to appear and cause trouble as she threatened. The worry was still there, but Kyle was ready. He had the divorce papers just in case she decided to show up and create a scene. As the priest asked if anyone had objections to our union, a voice cut through the moment, revealing that she indeed had a problem. We looked back in shock, and to my shock, it was Samantha. She was standing in the middle of the aisle. Clearly, she wasn't about to let our wedding proceed smoothly. The joy and excitement quickly turned into a tense and awkward silence as all eyes turned to her. Samantha started accusing Van, right there in front of everyone, that he was the father of the child that she was carrying. We looked at her, shocked, and I couldn't believe how ridiculous her lies were. She continued to yell that she was pregnant with his child and she couldn't let him get married to me. Every one of the guests, including our parents, looked at us in shock. The atmosphere went from pure joy to complete chaos in seconds. My dad looked at me quizzically, trying to get confirmation from me. I closed my eyes in exasperation as I knew what was about to happen next. Samantha looked at me and smirked, knowing that she had successfully embarrassed us. Before Samantha could utter another word, Kyle got up from his seat. She looked stumped seeing him suddenly, perhaps not expecting to see him among the guests. He approached Samantha with a calm yet stern expression on his face, clutching a small envelope in his hand. The tension in the room was palpable, and everyone watched as Kyle handed her the envelope. Samantha looked bewildered, not fully comprehending what was happening. With precision, Kyle declared, Samantha, you are the biggest liar and cheater I have known in my life, and you have left me with no choice now. I think it's time you know that I have been preparing to divorce you these last few months for the multiple affairs that you have had. Here are the divorce papers. The room hushed as Samantha opened the envelope, revealing the divorce papers. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Her plan to disrupt the wedding had backfired spectacularly. Kyle, maintaining his composure, started to explain to everyone present that he couldn't tolerate her lies and manipulations any longer and that she had been unfaithful in their marriage. He also announced to everyone that Samantha had a tendency to lie, and because she had a grudge against me and Van, she had decided to show up and interrupt our wedding. My husband and I exchanged glances, relieved that Kyle had been there to reveal the truth. Samantha, now facing the consequences of her actions, seemed stunned. The guests, initially shocked by her accusation, whispered among themselves. Van took this chance to ask everyone to remain seated and then asked Kyle to escort Samantha out, who stood there looking embarrassed. Kyle nodded and took her out while the ceremony proceeded as planned. As you can guess, even though our wedding went well, all our guests did was talk about Samantha. Some had even taken videos of the incident, and I have seen some of them on various friends' chat groups. I feel a bit bad about Samantha, but I guess she got what she deserved. Everyone is as shocked as I am that Samantha could go so low by accusing my husband of being the father of her child. Since the incident, she has tried to call me multiple times, unsuccessfully. From the messages she has sent me, I can see that she blames me for her divorce and not warning her about it. Date 1. Thank you to all for your advice. You all really opened my eyes to some things about my best friend that my brain had tried to avoid for the sake of our friendship, but I realize now that she was never truly a friend to me. She was indeed extremely toxic and manipulative. My husband and I are currently on our honeymoon, so I don't want to spend a lot of time dealing with Samantha's drama. I have also decided to cut ties with her completely this time. Despite her attempts to shift the blame onto me, I understand that her actions and lies were the cause of her failed marriage. My parents, who had known Samantha for a long time since she was my best friend of 8 years, are also very disappointed with her. They had no idea that she would go to such lengths to try to interrupt my wedding. She had clearly tried to embarrass me and my boyfriend, but in the process, she got embarrassed when her husband handed her their divorce papers and revealed her lies. Since this incident, I have learned a valuable lesson about toxic friendships and the importance of surrounding myself with people who genuinely care for my well-being. My focus now is on building a happy and healthy life with my husband. The support from friends and family during the wedding incident has been reassuring, and I am grateful for the love and understanding they've shown. Update 2. It's been 2 months since my last update. Van and I have remained in touch with Kyle, and he continues to be a dear friend to us. Kyle is in the process of getting his divorce from Samantha, and as expected, she is fighting tooth and nail to get alimony from him. At first, she had tried her best to convince Kyle that I had made things up about her having affairs but eventually confessed the truth when he told her that he had screenshots as proof. She had then tried to beg him to forgive her, but Kyle was determined to stand his ground. As for Samantha's attempts to reach out to me, she had initially alternated between pleading for forgiveness and hurling accusations at me, claiming that I ruined her life. I chose to maintain my distance and then blocked her on all forms of communication. It was crucial for my mental well-being to prioritize my own happiness and not let her negativity seep into my life. She then started messaging Van, who immediately let her know in no uncertain terms that he had enough of her crazy behavior and would take the legal route to get a restraining order from her if she continued. Since then, she hasn't tried to contact us. Some of our mutual friends have also stopped talking to Samantha since finding out about her antics and various affairs. It's clear now that Samantha can't hide herself behind blaming others, and I hope this time she learns a valuable lesson of owning her mistakes for once in her life. Update 3. It's been 7 months since my last update. The only reason I am back on Reddit is because I wanted to share with everyone my happy news. I am pregnant with Van. I know all my previous updates have been filled with drama, but this time it's nothing but pure joy and happiness. Van and I are over the moon about expecting our first child, and it's a wonderful new chapter in our lives. As for Samantha, she's become a distant memory. We continue to invite Kyle to visit us, and he is officially a divorced man. Fortunately for him, Samantha couldn't get any alimony due to her multiple affairs, and he is finally free to do whatever he wants. To those who offered advice and support throughout this roller coaster, thank you. Life is now filled with the excitement of starting a family, and we couldn't be more grateful for the love and positivity around us. Wishing everyone the best in their own journeys. Now on to the next story. Story 5. I bought a baby monitor and accidentally caught my wife cheating in our child's room. So I got revenge by using it as evidence to win our divorce and destroying her business. I, 35M, and my wife, 33F, have been married for almost 7 years now. We met at a local fair. I asked her out and things basically took off from there. It's been a good relationship and a good marriage, and we have our ups and downs like every other couple, but generally speaking, we have a very wholesome relationship, and I have always been very thankful for that. We weren't trying for a child for a pretty long time because we wanted to make the most of our relative youth while we still had it, but last year we decided to change things up. My wife, let's call her Naomi, got pregnant and we had our baby at the beginning of the year. I've always wanted to have a kid, so when my daughter was born, it was genuinely the happiest moment of my entire life. There's nothing that I can say to describe it beyond that. Adjusting to parenthood is hard though, and it became pretty clear how much it ties up your life. If you don't have dependable friends or family around, it becomes really hard to have a day to yourself unless you're open to paying a nanny to take care of your kid. That was an expense that me and my wife really can't take on, so we passed on that. But anyway, it was clear that if we wanted to go out to eat at a restaurant, we would need to arrange with someone to watch the baby, and it really wasn't that easy since we don't have many family members living close by. I'm not complaining, I'm just explaining how things were. It was because of the way things were that I decided that we needed to get a baby monitor. If the baby was sleeping, as babies tend to do for very long times at a go, we could potentially go somewhere extremely close by and rush back if the baby started to stir or wake up. I know on paper it sounds irresponsible, but honestly, not having any spontaneity was starting to weigh on us. I discussed it with my wife, and she was apprehensive about us leaving the baby at home for extended periods, but I told her that we would never go hang out anywhere that was more than a 5-minute walk from our place. Ultimately, we left the decision hanging, and I expected that we were going to talk about it again at some point. Naomi works at a place of her own on the corner of our street, selling flowers and floral arrangements. She's always been a creative type and she has always loved flowers, so I basically lent her the empty store which my uncle left to me after passing away from cancer, to use rent-free. I had no idea what I was going to do with it, and her having such a well-located store was definitely going to be to both of our benefit. She has a couple of girls who work for her, so she doesn't always go to work, but she does on most days. I work remotely, so it works perfectly for us. On one of those days that she did, I decided to buy a Wi-Fi baby monitor on Amazon on a whim. I did recognize before I purchased it that we hadn't both concluded and agreed on getting it, but I really felt like winning her over wasn't going to be some kind of big ordeal. It came the next day when she was at work again, so I set up the little camera in our baby's room. If the lights are on, it's very easy to notice it, but when the blinds are drawn or the light is off, it's not that easy to see it. The camera connects to the Wi-Fi, and I can use an app on my phone to check the monitor no matter where I am, which is pretty cool. After setting it up, I went right back to work, and honestly, I somehow forgot to tell her about it when she got back. The very next day was one of those few days where I had a bunch of errands to run, and I kind of looked forward to it because it was one of the times where I was entirely free of parental duties, even if for just a few hours at a time. When I was about to leave the house, my wife begged that I take the baby along, that she was exhausted from the week and she just needed to have some time to herself. I won't lie, I was a bit bummed at that, but this wasn't the first time that she asked me to take the baby along, and I wasn't able to the last time she asked, so this time around I agreed. I took my daughter and all of her needed things and started to run the errands for the day. I was halfway through the list of things that I was meant to do that day, and my daughter had been well behaved the entire day, so it honestly wasn't a bad day by any measure. Well, until a point. It was when I was sitting in my car, some fast food that I had bought, that I got a notification on my phone from the baby monitor app. It had detected activity, and my first thought was that my wife went into the baby's room to do something because that's the logical assumption to make. I pulled out my phone and opened the app, and I saw my wife and another man grappling in the baby's room. My heart leapt in my chest. Honestly, it looked like my wife was being assaulted by this man, and I can't describe how quickly I switched on the car. The only thing was that I started to hear sounds, and that was when I realized that my wife was far from being assaulted. It became clear that this man and my wife were making out in my daughter's room. Looking back, I'm still shocked at how rapidly my concern for her turned to a fiery hate, but I don't know why I couldn't stop watching. At one point, I had the common sense to record my screen so I could have evidence of what was going on. I saw the man's hand go under her blouse and then soon after try to take off her underwear. It was then that I heard her moan, and I literally watched as the man bent Naomi over the edge of the crib. I think it was then that I just tossed the phone aside. I wanted to scream and I wanted to punch something, but I had to keep my composure because my daughter was sleeping. But do you know how helpless I felt in that moment? I wanted to drive back home so badly. I wanted to go back there and hurt him and hurt her, but the only thing that held me back from doing something very stupid was my baby. Was that the reason why she asked me to take the baby along? Was this what happens every time she asks me to take the baby with me? Would she have done it even if our daughter was still at home? My wife and another man were being intimate in my daughter's room, and that was the part that disgusted me the most, to a level that I struggled to actually describe. By the time I picked up my phone again, the room was empty. I honestly didn't know what to do when I sat down in the car until my daughter woke up. By then, most of the places I was supposed to go to had closed, and I literally only had one errand left that I could run. I don't know why, but I still went ahead to do it. I think I needed something to take my mind off it because I knew the alternative was me going home, and I was genuinely scared of what might happen if I went before I got my head on right. Eventually, I went back home, and while she was concerned about me getting back home so late, I made up some stupid excuses that she bought. I really wanted to confront her, but I had to use every ounce of my self-control not to because my emotions were way too charged. I waited till she went to sleep and I sat in the living room until daytime. This is where I really need help because I'm freaking losing my mind. This was 2 days ago, and I've been struggling not to completely tear into her, especially because I have the advantage of evidence. She noticed the baby monitor yesterday, and I told her that I had just bought it so that she wouldn't suspect that I was on to her. Again, I'm still so disgusted that she did that in our baby's room, and I also don't know how to express how shocking it was to see things play out that way, especially since I had no idea whatsoever that she was being unfaithful. I wouldn't have guessed it in a million years. I think I'm going to confront her about it, but I really want to be assured that's the best move to make. I want to hear what you all have to say because I'm in the worst position to be making logical decisions right now. Everything I do will be completely fueled by emotion, and I want to avoid that. So let loose, even if it's to call me a fool for not rushing back home right away. Edit 1. Okay, so yes, I might be a fool for not rushing home right away, as many of you are pointing out, but honestly, not only was I not in the right mental place to be confronted with my wife and her affair partner, but I had my daughter with me, and I think it wouldn't have been smart for me to take her into such a dangerous atmosphere. My daughter held me back from doing anything stupid at that moment, and I'm still thankful for that because she could have gotten hurt if things went out of control. Edit 2. So the general consensus seems to be that I should confront her already and stop wasting time. So yes, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it tomorrow morning. I can't keep this inside me for any longer. And I also saw some people saying that I should check her phone. But that part will be hard. Her smartphone is almost always on her. I think it is better for me to come at her straight, so that's what I'll do. Date 1. So I'm back with an update on the story where I caught my wife cheating on the baby monitor. I confronted her about it, and it feels good to have been able to let out all that emotional baggage. But I'm also very hurt by the entire thing. Let me try my best to recap what happened. That morning, when Naomi woke up, I gave her about an hour before I asked her to sit down so that we could talk. She seemed worried and kept asking me if something was wrong, but I didn't say anything in response to that. I started off by telling her when I had bought the baby monitor, but she just looked at me confused. I said nothing, and she only replied with a drawled, "Okay." Then I told her that the baby monitor was already operational on the day that I ran errands. She still looked at me confused, and I really didn't want to say anything. I was simply just looking at her, and I could see the exact moment that she mentally recollected what happened that day. She jumped up slightly in her seat out of shock and she covered her mouth. We sat there, her mouth covered like that, for probably a full minute. I could see that she was struggling, trying to figure out what to say, but I really didn't want to give her the opportunity to rehearse something. So I asked her, "Why did you cheat on me with that guy?" She started to cry and she kept trying to speak through it, which was making her entirely unintelligible. I asked the question again and the same thing happened. She didn't have a real answer to the question, quite obviously. She couldn't use the female favorite, "You were never around," because I was always around. I continued my question and I asked her who the man was. At that point, she started to sob even louder, and it was pissing me off. This went on for almost 10 minutes before she finally started to calm down. I asked the question again, and it took her 2 minutes of shaking and burying her head in her palms before she spoke. "He's nobody important. He was important enough to be able to get in your panties. He's just some guy who came by the store. He wanted to buy flowers for his—" I already knew what the next word was, but I waited for her to finish. "For his wife." I laughed at that because not only was she cheating on me with some nobody in my daughter's room, but she was also messing around with a married man as a married woman herself. It actually disgusted me. There's no other word that I can use to describe it. I asked her what his name was. First, she said she didn't know, but I told her that was a lie. I knew that she knew at least his first name, if not both names. Eventually, she told me his name and I made a very solid mental note of that. Let's call him John Carpenter for fun. It was a more unique name than that though. Then the last question I asked was, "Why did you have to do something so disgusting in our daughter's room? Do you have no morals?" I mean, obviously not, but I still had to ask her. It was infuriating every time that I thought about it. She didn't say anything, and I was honestly shocked by the next thing that she said, and it is still as bafflingly stupid now as it was then. You didn't even wait for me to say yes to a baby monitor." I blew up at her. "So now it's my fault? Because if I didn't buy the baby monitor, you would still be able to have sex with a man in our daughter's room, right against her crib? I'm the villain because you were cheating with somebody who just happened to buy flowers in your store, a man with a wife, and you're boiling this down to me buying a baby monitor without asking you? You're pathetic." Yeah, after that she started to sob again and I felt a lot better. I didn't feel back to normal because it's hard to feel okay again so quickly after something like what I had gone through goes down. But yeah, it felt like some weight off my shoulders. For now, I've kicked Naomi out of the house, and I don't know how to proceed. I know a divorce is a must, but somehow it really isn't enough for me. I need to do more and hurt her beyond that. I just need help figuring out the best way that I can potentially do that, so I'm open to all the suggestions that I can get. Update 2. I'm back months after the fact, and I'm the happiest that I have been in a very long time. I was the guy who made the post about my wife, Naomi, who I caught cheating on me thanks to a baby monitor that I bought. I'm glad to bring you all one new update and what should be the final one in this entire story. I knew that I wanted to hurt Naomi badly, so I read through all the comments on my previous post and I took my sweet time to formulate a plan. The first thing that I went for was the divorce. That was easy. My close friend's wife is a divorce attorney, and she's freaking good at what she does, so I enlisted her services the same day that I confronted Naomi. I had the video evidence of her cheating, and I was told that it was going to come in useful for the trial. The fact that she had asked me to take the baby the day also showed that she had planned to cheat, and it was very likely not the first time either. When the divorce papers were ready, I specifically gave out Naomi's work address, which is that same corner shop that I lent to her to use for her business. I wanted her to be embarrassed, and while I wasn't there to watch her get served, I hoped that it was a bad look for her and the customers that must have been there at the time. She called me the same day that she was served, begging that we talk things over. I told her there was literally nothing for us to talk about, because she wouldn't have anything more to say to me than several sorry yes. And that was the last thing that I wanted to hear. When it was time for the divorce proceedings to begin, the first thing that her lawyer wanted to go for was the store. Its ownership transferred to me after my uncle died, and that was the asset that she was fighting tooth and nail for. We had a car, though not a fantastic one, and we rented an apartment. That was clearly the most valuable thing we owned between the two of us, and I think it was very clear to the judge as well. In fact, that was the one thing that I knew I had to have. My lawyer, bless her soul, really drove home not only how disgusting my wife cheating so soon after having our first child was, but all the other aspects that made it worse, like the location, the premeditation, and the fact that this probably wasn't the first time. She said that giving her that corner store would be like rewarding her bad behavior, and that wouldn't set a good example. End of the day, I got it all. Though I gave up the car since I was keeping the apartment, the judge said that it would help with coming to pick up or drop off the child. The custody part didn't go as nicely as I would have wanted since we ended up with joint custody. But it's fine. I also don't need to pay her a dime because thankfully, in my state, her infidelity was allowed to play a major part in the judgment. Here's the part that was finally able to heal my wounds. Remember John Carpenter, the man that my ex-wife cheated on me with? I found him on Facebook. Took me 2 minutes to find his wife and I messaged her. I explained the whole situation, including the fact that I had explicit footage of her husband and my wife, and she said she was interested in seeing it since she didn't believe me at first. She certainly believed me after. I had to do a lot of consoling, but it seems like things are going to hit the rocks on that side of the sea, and that makes me happy. Poor her, though. She'll end up better off eventually, at least like I have. The next thing was me letting my ex-wife know that she had 30 days to vacate the store. I walked into the store and told her this face-to-face over a month after we divorced because I wanted her to let her guard down, and it worked beautifully. She cried and even offered to start paying rent for the spot, but I said no. My eventual plan was to rent the place out, but I absolutely refused to make her my tenant. Nah, I needed to make sure that her lovely shop was no more. Sure, she could carry her brand elsewhere, but at least then she'd need to pay a lot to make it work, and that is fine by me. As I type this, that store is vacant, and I'm looking for a proper paying tenant. Her IG page still says that the store is closed indefinitely for renovation, but I'm glad that I know that's a lie. She's trying to save face, but it's not working very well, as it is now very evident that the physical location is no more. She's called me about 3 times in the past month simply to ask me to forgive her and let her use the store again, but I'm not swaying on that, not at all. And it makes me glad. This is really the happiest I've been in a while, and it sucks it has to come through revenge, but it is what it is. I'm glad I got to hit back at her in the end, and I'm glad it is hurting her just a fraction of the amount that it hurt me. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Dad chooses his career over the promise of walking me down the aisle. It always came first growing up, over all my big moments. My 26F father, 59M, is a slightly known musician in my home country. Due to his career, he missed out on most of my milestones while I was growing up. School plays, a few birthdays, and both my high school and college graduations are a few events he was informed of months in advance and canceled on me either weeks or days before. He always apologized for doing so but never really seemed to feel guilty. I remember we almost fought once because I didn't want to watch a video he had missed my high school graduation to film. It hurt me so much as a child that I stopped expecting him to show up. It still bothered me when I got older, but at that point, I understood that it was his job and I should be grateful he even had one. Now I'm getting married in 2 months. My fiancé, 28M, and I have been planning this wedding for a year and a half. The date was decided, and invitations were sent months ago. Almost every guest is already RSVP'd. I've reminded my father of the date several times this past year, and he kept assuring me he had blocked the entire week of the wedding and would be there. A couple of days ago, my father called to inform me he'd had to schedule a concert for my wedding day. He apologized and said he'd make it up to me with a gift. I don't want a gift, I want my father to come to my wedding. So I told him that either he figured out a way to reschedule, which I know he could probably do if he tried, or I'd cut ties with him. What followed was one of the biggest fights we've ever had. He called me ungrateful, spoiled, and selfish for giving him that kind of ultimatum and expecting him to change his work schedule for my benefit, which he has asked me to do on many occasions before. He yelled, and I held myself not to yell back. We're still fighting over this. Most of my family is on my side, though both my mom, divorced from my dad, and my fiancé have warned me not to make any moves I might regret. My sister, 20F, is on my father's side, which doesn't surprise me. I love my father, and I really don't want to stop talking to him, but I'm done with him expecting to be able to miss out on my life with no consequences. That being said, I'd be lying if I said that I don't feel guilty. Just writing this all down made me feel like a huge brat, so Aita. More info. We've had a rocky relationship for a little over a decade now for various reasons, including his tendency to use how much money he'd spend on my sister and me against us. That's why I try not to ask him for anything. It's got nothing to do with why I'm threatening to cut contact, though. I couldn't care less about presents, especially coming from my father. Pretty much anything he gives me comes with strings attached. As he explained on the phone, he forgot about the wedding date while scheduling the concerts with his manager. His current girlfriend reminded him hours later. I knew he couldn't actually block the whole week. He'd promised the same thing before my high school graduation, but he could still avoid it before he canceled on me. He specifically said he wanted to walk me down the aisle. I didn't want him to. I hate the whole giving the bride away thing, but I'd agreed because I thought it would be important for him. Edit. I thought I'd clarify some things. My mom and my fiancé are 100% on my side. They told me to be careful because they know I don't really want to go no contact. Also, my mom has barely spoken to my father in almost 20 years, and my fiancé is with me because we love each other, not because of who my father is. My father is not a struggling artist. He's been in this line of work since before I was born. I wouldn't consider him rich, but he lives more than just comfortably. If I thought he couldn't afford to reschedule a concert, I wouldn't blame him for not being able to come to the wedding. This specific concert is in a smaller city. For these, he can usually reschedule until ticket sales are announced, which they haven't been yet. There is some bureaucracy involved, which is why I've never asked him to do so before, but it is doable. I do have other people who can walk me down the aisle. My stepdad, which would make my dad furious, so I might do it purely out of pettiness, and at least 2 of my best friends would be more than willing to also. Also, I've tried acting indifferent before. It doesn't work. He interprets it as forgiveness. It's the reason why he still does this. Also, he isn't paying for any part of the wedding. He offered to, but I declined. I don't live with him anymore, and both my fiancé and I have good jobs. When I was younger, I told myself that once I didn't need his money anymore, I'd never ask for it again. And yes, he paid child support and provided for both me and my sister. Finally, about my sister, she isn't the golden child. He missed many of her milestones as well. However, she keeps taking his side for 3 reasons. 1, she still lives with him. 2, she has been belittling me since she was in elementary school. And 3, this is probably my fault. I've been sheltering her from these things her entire life. The only reason why our father went to her high school graduation was because I berated him as a teen. I took over her fights with him and played mediator whenever I had to. Basically, she never had many problems with him because of me. She doesn't know half of what I've done for her, and I don't really want her to. Update 1. Hey guys, a lot has happened, but I'll try to keep this short. I'll start off by saying that your comments on my first post were very eye-opening. Though some of the assumptions you made were wrong, I could see where they all came from, and most of what you said was so spot on it was painful to read. Someone said that my father doesn't see me as a person but as an extension of himself. That one hurt the most because it's the best definition of my relationship with my father I've ever seen. My father wasn't neglectful in the traditional sense. My parents divorced when I was 7 years old, and my mom had primary custody of me and my sister, but we still went to his place several times a week. My mother is a teacher and couldn't raise us on her salary alone. So he was our main financial supporter even after the divorce. Because of all of this, he seems to believe he is the best father ever. Whenever we fought, he always insisted I was wrong and ungrateful. Those same arguments were used whenever I demonstrated I was upset over him missing out on my milestones. In his head, for instance, I couldn't get angry if he missed my high school graduation or if he didn't pay attention to any of the projects I developed in college because he was the one paying for my education. I decided to stop complaining about this when I was younger, having realized I wouldn't be able to get him to see my side. This wedding incident felt like a turning point, though, especially since he wasn't paying for anything this time. It made me accept that he doesn't care how much he contributed anymore but still believes I don't have the right to be upset. I now realize there's no winning this. If he doesn't come, I'll be devastated. If he does, I'll always remember I had to force my father to come to my wedding. At this point, I'm not even sure which is worse. So a few days ago, I had a discussion with my father over the phone in which I expressed all of the above and more, and as expected, he called me dramatic, accused me of alienating myself, and berated me for talking to him the way I did. I hung up on him. This is how our fights have gone since I was a teenager, and it never solves anything. We haven't spoken since. I sent him a long text basically saying I didn't want to hear from him until he was ready to both give me a sincere apology and own up to the fact that the status of our relationship was his fault. This is all wishful thinking. I really don't think either is going to happen. I love my father, and I know he loves me to bits, but I can't do this anymore. He's been around my entire life and still barely knows me for who I am. It's his turn to make that effort right now. I'm trying to muster up excitement for my wedding. I lost most of it these past weeks. My fiancé, my mom, and my friends are all trying to cheer me up, and it's starting to work. I'm definitely feeling a lot better than last week. I'm really grateful to have them in my life. So that's it for now. Thank you all for your support on my previous post. Update 2. Hey guys, this will probably be my last update. First of all, I'm happy to announce that I finally got married to the love of my life almost 2 weeks ago. For the last 6 years, this man has been my rock, my best friend, and my biggest supporter, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with him. I give him, my mom, and my friends, especially my awesome Mo, full credit for helping me regain my excitement for my wedding, and it was amazing. Everyone had fun, the food was great, and no one got too drunk, a constant concern of mine. Some of my friends have that tendency. I went home knowing I'd spent my wedding day surrounded by people who loved me, but my father wasn't there. After thinking very carefully about the matter and talking about it with my paternal family, all of whom were taking my side, I realized I wasn't ready to go and see, especially since I will have to see him at least once a year for the holidays. But I legitimately don't want to invest in our relationship anymore. So for now, I'm going extremely LC. I will act civil, though probably cold, whenever I'm around him, but that's it. I'm not answering his calls or texts. He's no longer welcome at my place, and I'm no longer inviting him to anything, including my birthdays, work events, and my future children's milestones. I'm leaving the door open in case he ever wants to try to make an effort to be better, therapy, apologies, and actually caring about my accomplishments, but I'm more than ready to close it. I ended up talking to him one more time, again through the phone, a couple of weeks after my update 3. I told him all of the above, and when he yelled at me, I asked him to name a single project I'd worked on in college. I had told him about 4 and explained one of them in detail several times, none of which he'd remember the next day. He couldn't. I asked him to describe one of them at least loosely. He couldn't either. I kept asking him about multiple details about my life that I clearly remembered telling him about, always at least twice. Nada. He claimed I'd never told him about any of this stuff. I said that not only had I informed him of these things frequently, but we'd also had that exact conversation dozens of times before, and the outcome is always the same. He's a great father, and I'm ungrateful and dramatic. I told him I'll always love him and be grateful for the things he did for me. But I'm done. He only cares about me as his daughter and not a grown woman who exists outside of his life. He never actually cared about anything that wasn't about him. I'm done with him thinking I'm not worth the same respect that I have bent over backward to give him my whole life. We haven't spoken since. My cousin told me her mom, his older sister, berated him on the phone a few days later. My mom has offered to do the same, but I declined. He's been trying to talk to my sister about it, but I told her to stay out of it. Things have been getting a bit better between me and her. I considered having my stepfather walk me down the aisle, but he remembered me saying I never wanted my dad to give me away in the first place, so he encouraged me to do things my way. I ended up walking alone to a string version of Metallica's Nothing Else Matters. About halfway through, my 3-year-old goddaughter came up to me and grabbed my hand, and we walked the rest of the way together. It was perfect. My father texted me during the wedding, probably to ask for pictures. I didn't reply. For now, I feel numb. There is very little about the situation that didn't break my heart, and I'm not exactly happy about the outcome. Most of the time, I'm too sad to think about the silver linings but too exhausted actually to feel sad. That being said, I'm also ecstatic. I never thought I'd be as happy about my wedding as I am. We also just got back from our honeymoon, so it's been easier to focus on the good times. Finally, some people have PM'd me asking who my father is or even speculating about it. Please don't. This is still my family. In spite of everything, he is still my father, and I love him. I came here for advice, not revenge or sabotage. I wouldn't have created a throwaway if I didn't want to be kept anonymous. That's all, folks. Thank you for all your kind words and advice. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Parents couldn't afford to pay for college, so I asked my grandparents to pay for it. Now they've cut me off and are mad because I have ruined their reputation. I 17M am supposed to start college in a couple of months, and recently my parents told me that they did not have any money set aside for me, so I would have to make my own way. I already knew that, and so I had taken certain measures to prevent myself from getting into any sort of financial trouble before I was supposed to start college. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I had a job. It did not pay much, but at least I had some money for myself, and I could at least just travel to the location of my college if not anything else. And when I quit my job because of them, I did something else, and now I'm getting a lot of flack for it. I have already been accepted into the school of my choice, and I have every intention of attending, but before I get into why I had to fall out with my parents, I need to tell you guys certain things about them so everything makes sense. My parents did not grow up poor, and for a really long time we were pretty well off. All of my grandparents were actually family friends first, and that's how my parents met each other. They have known each other since they were kids, and it was always the plan for them to get married when they grew up. When they got married, they also started their own cafe business together. Their parents invested in it, and for a really long time things were great for them, and then I was born. They were still doing pretty great, and I grew up in a loving home, and I never had to worry about money. The cafe that my parents run did moderately well. It's pretty popular among people who live in our neighborhood, and they made a nice living from it, enough to call ourselves comfortable. Everything was great until the pandemic hit, and then obviously we had to shut down the cafe, and for months we had to rely on our savings to get by. Even after things started opening back up again, our cafe was not able to take off like it was supposed to. For the past couple of years, the business has been in trouble, and my parents have been struggling to keep up with the bills and everything. My dad has even had to get another job in a small-scale marketing firm and manage the cafe part-time, while my mother tries to revive the business. It has been a sorry state of affairs for the past few years, and I think I have been very affected by it because I was never used to any of this. I never had to think about money before, but all of a sudden we had been thrust into a life where we had to think twice before any sort of purchase, and it was very difficult for me to adapt to it. I might sound spoiled, but I think anybody who has been through this kind of situation would agree with me, but I mean that I had to do something about my life because it had become very evident that I could not rely on my parents anymore. I'm not saying this because I want to mock them, I'm just saying this because I really could not rely on them since I would feel bad if I had to. I was acutely aware of how hard they were trying to keep our family afloat, and I knew that they were doing their best. I could not ask them for money because I knew that they were already struggling, and I did not want to make them feel even smaller by asking them for financial help only to be told that they could not afford to do that for me. So I decided that I was going to get a part-time job, but I was going to keep that information a secret from them because I knew that they were too proud to admit that they were poor now. Everybody knew about the situation with our family and the business, but my parents pretended like nobody knew, and they tried to keep up appearances, making sure that they maintained the same kind of lifestyle that we had been used to. They did not want anybody to be able to guess that we were not doing financially well anymore and did their best to cover everything up. So whenever we would attend family parties, they would make it a point to dress up to the nth degree, and would even rent a car since we had to sell the one we had. I felt kind of sorry for them, and I was quite embarrassed by it because I knew that everybody else knew the truth, yet they were still pretending to have the same lifestyle. Nobody ever said anything to them or confronted them about it because I guess everybody else felt sorry for us as well. My grandparents were the most affected by this because these were their kids who were suffering, and I knew that they had offered to help them out financially quite a lot of times, but my parents were too proud to accept any sort of money from them. Whenever I would visit my grandparents, be it my mom's parents or my dad's parents, they would always have the same complaints against my parents and would keep telling me to try and convince them to take their help, but I didn't try to speak about that to my parents because I did not think it was my place to say anything. I had tried it once in the initial stages of our cafe decline, and I had told my parents that I thought they should accept help from their parents, and they had been very upset with me that day. I did not want to repeat that episode because I knew that they would find it very offensive if I tried to talk to them about the family's finances because they thought that it was me trying to question their authority and acumen. They believed that it was disrespectful, and it was not my place to comment on any of that. So I stayed out of it and just tried to get by on my own. 2 years ago, I got my first part-time job at the bowling alley, and it was pretty easy to keep it a secret from my parents because the place where I worked was a little distance away from where we lived, so we did not really have anybody coming in who would know me. I would tell my parents every day that I was staying back after school for football practice, which was not technically untrue because I did stay back for that purpose, but then I would head to the bowling alley and work there. I did not earn a lot of money, but at least it was something and it gave me a sense of accomplishment. However, they had to let me go after a few months as they had found a full-time employee, and it made more sense to hire him instead. It was nothing personal, and my manager there even wrote me a letter of recommendation for my next job as a cashier at the nearby bookstore. That was a slightly riskier job because that place was much closer to my house and neighborhood than the others, and I was constantly afraid that somebody I knew would walk in, and then my cover would be blown. My parents would get to know, and I would have to hear it from them. However, I did not have the option of quitting because I knew that I had to earn at least some money even if it was not enough to cover my college tuition. I knew that my parents would not be able to pay it all off, and I would either have to take out a student loan or I would have to work my way through college, so it was better for me to start early and start earning before I headed to college. It went on for a couple of months and a few of my friends knew about it, but I made sure that they told their parents to keep it a secret from my parents, and they were nice enough to oblige. I almost worked there for a year before a couple of months ago, my parents finally found out. It was a neighbor of mine, and she was a particularly vicious and chatty one. I should have known that I was done for as soon as she walked into the bookstore. Honestly, I never would have expected the lady to even be able to read a magazine, let alone a book. But I guess she was getting a gift for somebody. She had never come to the bookstore before, and as soon as I saw her, I knew that I was screwed. She did not even say anything to me when she saw me working there and had minimal interaction. We did not say anything to each other, but she kept smiling at me very smugly. I knew that she would go back and immediately tell my parents about it, and that's what happened. When I got back home that day, my parents were absolutely furious at me, and I think they must have yelled at me for a whole hour. They believed that my going out of my way to get a part-time job and keep it a secret from them just showed my lack of faith in my own parents and said that they were very unhappy with me about my actions. They reminded me that I belonged to a business family, and no son of theirs was going to work as long as they were around to provide for me. It was disgraceful, and they were pretty disappointed in me. They told me that I had embarrassed them and were mostly worried about what everybody would be saying about this when they got to know that I had been working. They believed that the fact that I had been working part-time would just let everybody else know that my parents were not able to fully provide for me, and that would allow people to guess that the cafe business had not been doing well, something that they had been trying to conceal from everybody for so long and so hard. I don't understand why they were trying to pretend everyone already knew the truth, but I didn't say that to them then because they were already pretty mad, and I didn't want to add fuel to the fire. So I just stayed quiet and let them get it all out. But then, after they were done yelling at me, they said that I had to quit the job that I had because it was just too shameful. I resisted a little at that point because the job was very important for me to have some sense of stability and remind myself that not everything was lost just because my parents were struggling with money didn't mean that I could not make my own. I wanted to get a head start, but before I started college, and I tried to explain that to them, but they just kept repeating themselves over again, reminding me that I had already brought a lot of shame to the family by getting a job before I had even finished my education. They do not want me to embarrass them even more by continuing to work. So I told them that I was only doing this because I did not want to be a burden on them in the future since I had every intention of going to college, and I knew that they were struggling with money. So they told me that I did not have to worry about that, and they would take care of everything for me. They promised me and told me that by the time I would start applying they would make sure they had something set aside for me. I could not fully trust them, but judging by the way that they were acting, I found it really hard to say no because it felt like they were really going to lose their minds if I said that I was going to continue working. So I did what they asked of me and I quit my job. It was one of the hardest decisions that I have ever made so far, but I had to do it because I did not want to make my parents even more upset than they already were. But I still could not bring myself to fully trust them because I knew that they were struggling, and I had no idea how they were going to get the sort of money that they had promised me. I knew that sending kids to college was expensive, and the only option that I would be left with would be to take out a student loan to cover the cost of my education afterward. I went to public school, so they did not have to worry about my education so far, but I wanted to compromise my college degree, and I knew that if I took a student loan, I would spend the rest of my life paying it back, and it was also very unlikely that I would be able to get any sort of high-paying job without a college degree in this economy. So I decided to approach my grandparents for help again. I had to do it without my parents knowing because I knew that if they got to know that I was asking somebody for help, they would literally lose their minds and probably even kick me out. I knew they were too proud to ask for help, but I was not. I loved my grandparents and knew that they would be glad to help us. Besides, I was not asking them for money for my parents. I was asking them to help me personally, so my parents could choose not to take money from their parents, but I did not have to abide by the same rules. At least that's what I told myself when I made that decision. Almost 1 month after I had quit my job, I decided to approach my grandparents and ask them for help. I set up a meeting with them at my maternal grandparents' house and told them about everything that happened the previous month. I told them I was really worried about the money, and I couldn't even go back to work because if my parents found out that I had been working, they would literally flip out, and I did not want to risk getting them all upset again. But I also did not want to risk not being able to go to college because my parents were not able to live up to their promise, and I was pretty sure they wouldn't be able to set aside money for me since they were still going about things the same way and have not taken any extra measures or changed anything about their lifestyle. My grandparents were all happy to help me. They told me that they wished that even my parents would come to them because they were sure that with a little money they would be able to revive the business, but my parents were too proud, forgetting the fact that they had even been able to start this business because of the first investment that my parents had made. I don't understand why they were behaving this way. As far as I knew, my grandparents had never made a big deal of it and had always referred to their kids as self-made, even though it was not really true in the strictest sense of the word. Anyway, I told my grandparents about it, and they told me that when the time came, they would definitely cover my college tuition, and I was relieved. So for the next couple of months up until a week ago, I wasn't exactly worried about anything, and I went about my life without any anxiety about college or how I would be able to pay for it. My parents also did not bring it up again, so we spent the last couple of months not even talking about it because I did not want to bring up the fact that I already had asked my grandparents for money and they had agreed to help me because I knew that they would not like it, and they did not bring up anything about college with me because I was pretty sure that they would not be able to help me. Both of us avoided speaking to each other about it. However, last week I got accepted into the college of my choice. We finally had to discuss it, and everything was out in the open. We could not hide these things from each other. A couple of hours after I received the email that said that I had been accepted, my parents started looking really uncomfortable, and eventually after dinner they told me that they had been thinking about this, and they believed that it would be safer for me to get a student loan or try to work through college because at least then I would be of age, and it would be away from home so nobody would get to know about it. They confessed to me that they had been trying really hard for the past few months, but they had not been able to save up enough money and were still struggling financially, so it would not be possible for them to pay for me to go to college, and I had to look out for myself. They said that they were really sorry about it and they did not want to let me down, but they did not have any other option because at the time when I was working, they were really embarrassed by it, and they did not want it to continue, so they had to promise me that they would cover my tuition even if they were not sure if they would be able to live up to their promise or not. But I had already seen this coming, and I was not even surprised when they told me that they would not be able to cover my tuition. I just smiled at them, and I told them that I got it covered, and they did not have to worry about it. That took them by surprise, and I guess I should have been a little more careful about how I had reacted to avoid the drama that followed. They asked me why I was not more worried, and then I had to tell them the truth. When they found out that I had asked for money from my grandparents and now I would be depending on them, they reacted just as I had expected them to. They started screaming at me almost immediately and told me that I had completely ruined their reputation and that I needed to apologize to my grandparents and tell them that I would not be requiring any money from them, that there had been some confusion regarding my college fund, and I did not need to depend on them because my parents would be able to provide for me. I had no idea why they even expected that I would do that just a few minutes after they had told me that they would not be able to cover my tuition. So I told them that they had different values and opinions compared to me, but I had had no shame in taking money from my family, especially when they were offering to help me out. I feel bad accepting the fact that we were now not as financially stable as we used to be, and I needed external help to get by. Also, I was going to return the money to my grandparents eventually once I had started earning, and so I did not find anything morally wrong about what I was doing. They refused to accept that, and they told me that I had to do as they said, or they would cut me off forever and never speak to me again if I took money from my grandparents. They think that I was very sneaky and betrayed their trust and ruined their reputation, none of which seem fair accusations to me. They are putting me in a very difficult spot right now, and even though it has been a couple of days since our fight, I have not yet been able to come to a conclusion about what I should do. My parents have been refusing to talk to me, and anytime I enter a room or try to speak to them, they just start ignoring me and pretend like I'm not even there. It's really hurtful, and I don't think it's worth it. Aita for going behind my parents' backs and asking my grandparents for money so that I can pay for college? Update 1. Hi. Thank you so much for the words of advice and the overwhelming support that you guys have shown me. I really did not see this coming, but most people in the comments believe that my parents are being unreasonable, and I think that you guys are right. Some of you were calling me a doormat for even wanting to stay with my parents after everything that they have put me through or even quitting my job. I don't understand how that works because I'm literally a minor, and I love my parents. That's not something that I will deny. Maybe in your world people can just get up and leave when they hit a snag, but for so many years my parents have treated me like a king and have provided for me. I wasn't going to just abandon them and start fighting with them when they were in a tough position. I will agree that what they did was not right, and it was completely unreasonable of them, but that being said, I couldn't leave my parents. I don't think it's right to give me so much hate just because I as a 17-year-old wanted to be with my parents and try to work out the issues that we are having. Anyway, that being said, I did not see any other option than to just tell them that I was not going to back down, and I was definitely going to take the money from my grandparents and go to college because all the other options were not things that I could work around. I was not willing to take a loan, and I was not willing to work through college if my grandparents were willing to help me. I did not see any valid reason to refuse them. I respected them and their opinions, but I had my own set of beliefs, and I was not going to compromise to protect their so-called pride and reputation. I had to give them a speech while they were in the living room pretending to not hear me, and they did not react to anything that I said, but at least I got it off my chest and I said to them whatever it was that I had to say. Now the ball is in their court, and they can decide whether they want to accept my decision, or if they want to continue behaving the way that they have been so far. Either way, I am doing what I had decided I was going to do, and they cannot change my mind. Update 2. It has been 2 weeks since I announced to my parents that I was not going to change my decision. Certain things have happened in the past 2 weeks, and right now I'm living with my grandparents. My mom's parents have taken me in for now, and I'll get to how that happened. So maybe 3 or 4 days after I had announced to my parents that I was not going to change my mind, my mother finally came around, and she told me that if I thought that this was the right thing to do, then she was not going to hold it against me. She came into my room really late at night and kind of broke down. We ended up having a heart-to-heart conversation, and she told me that she had been really struggling with the cafe, and it was my dad who was actually refusing to take money from everybody, and that was because he was just unable to bring himself to accept the fact that he needed help. For so long they had been independent and never had to rely on anybody for anything, but now things were different, and he was just having a hard time dealing with it. He was too proud to admit that he was not as financially well off as he used to be a couple of years ago. She had tried to convince him several times to do something about this. They could both get jobs, but he refused to shut down the cafe even for a while. She had told him that once they got back on track financially, they would reopen it, but he was not cool with it. He was not willing to take money from his family because he did not want any favors from anyone. I tried to console her since I could understand where she was coming from. Anyway, we ended up hugging, and she told me that she was going to support me. The next day, I woke up to the sound of my parents fighting like cats and dogs downstairs, and when I went downstairs to check what was going on, I noticed that my dad was screaming at my mom, and she was yelling right back. He was waving a massive wad of cash in her face and accusing her of betraying him and lying to him. She was trying to defend herself, saying that she was going to tell him about it, but she was just looking for the right opportunity to do so. After a while, I figured out that apparently my mother had sold all her jewelry, and she was planning to contribute to my college fund with that money. My dad was pissed because now she had nothing left, and he was worried that this was going to reflect badly on them in the future when she would attend parties and events and wouldn't have any jewelry to wear. She told him that he was being superficial, and he accused her of being too foolish. I thought that my dad was being crazy, and after he had calmed down, I decided to talk to him once and for all. But before I could enter his room, I heard him crying from outside the door, and it just broke my heart because even after so many things had happened, I had never heard my father cry. But when I started outside his room, I could hear him absolutely sobbing like a wreck, and my mother was outside in the living room doing the same. I was just so devastated because of what was going on in the family that I did not have to think twice before contacting my grandparents. After that, my grandparents arrived, and there was an intervention because we as a family really needed to talk. I won't get another detail, but for now, my parents are living with my dad's parents, and I'm living with my mom's parents. We are trying to get together every weekend as a family because I don't think it's wise for any of us to be on our own right now, given the mental state that both of my parents are in, and I think it is a really good improvement for my family. I hope things get back to normal or at least close to normal soon enough. Update 3. Hey everybody. It has been a week since I started college, and I'm so relieved that this is finally happening. My grandparents are the ones covering my tuition just like we had planned, and my parents are finally okay with it. My parents are back to living on their own. They are trying couples counseling, and from what I hear, things are going well for them. They have finally decided to get help from their parents and allow them to reinvest in the cafe so they can reinvent their business model and try to make it work. I hope that works for them. We are able to see the success that we had before, if not more. I really hope to inherit that, and I want to run it because it has become a piece of my heart. I kind of understand now why my father did not want to shut it even when we were suffering financially. Things are finally looking up for me, and I really want to make the most of my college life. I know it has been tough for me so far, but I want to enjoy my life to the fullest. Life is short, and we never know what's going to happen next. So right now, I just want to live in the moment. I'm really done with worrying about the future constantly. Things will work out, I know that, and I don't want to constantly stress myself out because I know that will never lead to anything good. My parents have already faced it, and I don't want to experience life the same way. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Stepsister bullied me at school, moved into my house, stole my room, and threw a party when my dad and stepmom were away. Now she ran away to her dad's house and my stepmom blames me for it. Hello everyone. I have something that I need to share. It's about my nightmare of a stepsister who moved into our house a few months ago and has made my life absolutely, utterly miserable. She thought she could get away with anything, but she soon learned that karma doesn't forget. Some background. I, 15F, am my dad's only child. My parents separated when I was a kid and my dad has raised me by himself since then. My dad runs his own business and owns commercial properties in a few states. He is a very good dad and has always been wonderful to me, but he stays busy with work and travels a lot, so we don't see each other as much. I was around 5 at the time of the divorce and my dad got custody of me. My mom passed away when I was 10, so for the last few years, my dad has been raising me by himself. And although it has not been easy, we try to be the best we can for each other. Before my mom passed away, I used to spend 1 week every month with her. Since my mom passed away, my dad has taken at least 1 week of working from home every month to spend time with me, and honestly, that has been the best part of my months ever since. I used to look forward to this week all month, and we used to have the best time together. I thought our life was perfect and never felt like I was missing out on having a mom. But things changed when my dad remarried last year to a woman named Karen. I'm using a fake name here. She is quite a bit younger than my dad. For context, my dad is 52 and Karen is 35, and they dated for around a year before getting married. I met Karen before the wedding as well, but I never really liked her. If you ask me, she is a gold digger who only married my dad for his money. She was hardly out of her divorce when she met my dad, and honestly, I don't see what my dad thinks is so great about that woman. They met on a dating app around a year ago, and I disliked her from the very first day I met her. But I didn't tell my dad because I didn't want to hurt him. I know that it must have been difficult for him to stay without my mom, and although it's beyond my understanding, Karen actually seems to make him quite happy. Also, it's not like I expected my dad to stay single forever. In fact, I really wanted him to get out there and meet someone. I just wish that it was not Karen. Anyone but Karen, really. Anyway, Karen has a daughter from her previous marriage. Her name is Ashley and she is 16, and after our parents got married, she started going to the same school as me. I don't know much about Ashley's bio dad, but I know that Karen absolutely hates the guy and doesn't like Ashley seeing him. She does go over to his house on some weekends, but I have heard Karen trying to convince Ashley not to meet him several times, and she actually doesn't meet her dad much. Anyway, my stepsister is the whole reason why I'm writing this post in the first place. Ashley is spoiled, rude, selfish, and arrogant. She thinks she is better than everyone else, and she looks down on me and my dad. She always complains about everything, and she never does any chores or homework. She spends all her time on her phone, shopping online, or watching Netflix. Karen never says no to her for anything, and ever since she started living at our house, it's like she expects me and my dad to act the same way as her mom. She also has a habit of stealing my clothes, hiding and using up my makeup and jewelry, and then lying about it. She also sneaks in with her boyfriend often when no one's home and has warned me against saying anything to my dad or her mom. I honestly don't mind that. It is none of my business, but that's not all she does. Actually, I wish that being bratty and sneaking in boys was the only thing she did. But she is worse, so much worse than that. Karen never tells her off for messing with my stuff and instead is obsessed with getting her everything she wants. It's almost like she is trying to please her for some reason. Anyway, when Karen and Ashley moved in, they brought a lot of stuff with them. Karen obviously took over the master bedroom, which used to be my dad's, and filled it with her tacky furniture, clothes, and accessories. She also convinced my dad to give my room to Ashley since she would be moving out for college soon anyway, and I would only have to adjust for a few years, and after that I could have my room back. I hated this and tried to convince my dad to keep my room, but he said that Karen had a point and that I should do my part in making my big sister feel welcome. They also took over the guest room, which was the only other nice room. It is filled with Karen's Pilates stuff and I am not allowed to even enter it. Forget about touching any of that stuff. But not that I care about that, but the guest room being occupied left me with the smallest room in the house, which barely had enough space for a bed and a desk. I had to move a lot of my stuff into the attic because there was simply no space for it in my new room. My dad apologized to me but said that since Ashley was older and all of this was new to her, she needed more space. To be fair, he did say that if I really had a problem with this, I could have the guest room and they would rearrange all the stuff in there, but I could tell that he was just trying to be nice. There was no way all that exercise stuff would fit into this tiny room anyway, so I didn't even bother. I did think of suggesting that we should put Ashley in the tiny room and let me keep my room since she would only have to struggle for a few years, but decided against it. I just wanted to make things easier for my dad. Despite all of it, I didn't mind the living situation that much. I am used to spending a lot of time at school because of my extracurriculars. I didn't need a huge room to be happy. I had my books, my laptop, and my guitar. I also have a few amazing friends at school who were supportive and understanding. I started hanging out at their house a lot after school, trying to avoid Ashley as much as I possibly could, and I focused more on my studies and hobbies. I wanted to get good grades so I could go to a good college and move out of this place as soon as possible. But Ashley was not okay with leaving me alone. Once she transferred to my school, she started to terrorize me at both school and at home. She would spread rumors about me, call me names, mock me, and embarrass me in front of everyone. She would also sabotage my work and even steal from my school locker once. Of course, when I told my dad about it, he said that I must be mistaken and someone else must have taken my stuff. She did everything she could to make me miserable. Since she was a junior and I was only in middle school, it was kind of impossible for me to do anything against her at school. I just tried to avoid her at home, but even it wasn't easy because of how intrusive and annoying she is. She also tried to turn my dad against me. She would always be manipulative around him. She didn't outright lie to him, but she used to subtly try to make it seem like I wasn't kind to her and tell him stuff like how she has always wanted a little sister and hoped that I would warm up to her. I tried to talk to my dad about all this, but he didn't believe me and said the same thing that he always says, that Ashley is still adjusting and has had a rough life and that I should be patient with her. She would act sweet and innocent and pretend to be the perfect daughter. She would also butter him up and ask him for gifts and money all the time. She turned 16 just a few months after her mom married my dad, and Dad even bought her a really expensive car as a birthday gift. I didn't care about all that stuff, but when my dad started spending most of his week at home with Ashley and Karen instead of me, it started to really bother me. Ashley would be really mean to me, saying my dad would forget me once I moved out to college and she would be his only daughter and that I would be forgotten. I honestly did not pay much attention to these things and told myself that she was just immature and stupid. I know, of course, that my dad will never forget me, no matter how close he gets to Ashley. Last week, it was Karen and my dad's anniversary. They decided to take a weekend trip to my uncle's beach house. My dad wanted to come back the same day and not stay the night, but Karen wanted to stay, and Ashley convinced him that she would take care of the house and watch over me and promised him that nothing bad would happen. My dad had literally never left me alone overnight before, and I did not want Ashley, of all people, to be there when he did. I didn't even like the sound of that. I knew that if none of the adults were home, she would do something crazy and make me a part of it too. But I did not want to ruin my dad's day and told him that he should go and that I was old enough to take care of myself. I promised him that if anything went wrong, I could call him immediately. Turns out I would need to keep that promise earlier than I expected, but that's for later. Anyway, the moment that they left, Ashley turned to me and handed me some sheets of paper. I was really confused and asked her what this was. She told me that she was throwing a party that night and this was her rule book, and I had to follow everything written on it for the next 2 days or she would make sure that I was even more miserable in school than I already was. I was kind of scared. I looked at the paper and it was like the world's stupidest rule book. She had written stuff like I had to lie to my dad when he calls to check up. I had to be the one who cleans up after the party. I had to make sure no one goes into a room. I would have to let her friends use my room if they needed to. She even said that I would have to give her a part of my pocket money so she could buy stuff for the party. I was speechless. This was even crazier than usual. Who did she even think she was to create a rule book? I mean, it was ridiculous. This was the first time I actually snapped at her, and I told her that I couldn't care less about her stupid rules and that would tell Dad immediately if she threw a party. I told her that Dad hates these kinds of things and would never allow it. That was a mistake. Her whole tone changed and she told me to watch my words before I forced her to do something that would make me regret it very much. I knew she was capable of making me that miserable, so I agreed to follow her rule book. At least that's what I pretended to do. I had been waiting for the perfect time to expose her, and now I literally had the chance to get proof against her. I could just keep the rule book and show Dad when he comes back. I already started imagining how he would react if he found out the truth. I also thought that if she did throw a party, I would just take pictures and videos of it as proof. I know that even though my dad is pretty cool, a party was too much for him and he would definitely be mad at Ashley. I decided to play it cool with her and put up a whole act about how scared I was of her and told her that I would do anything she wanted me to do. She looked so smug at that. I couldn't wait for the party to begin. As I mentioned before, I played along with Ashley's ridiculous rulebook, all the while secretly planning to expose her to my dad. The night of her party arrived, and I acted scared and compliant while discreetly documenting the chaos that ensued. I even helped her prepare for the party. The party itself was exactly how I would imagine it to be. There were people drinking beers, trashing the place, and I am sure that at least a few things were broken. The only thing I did was keep people away from my dad and Karen's bedroom. I couldn't care less about Ashley's rules, obviously, and so I locked my room first and then locked myself in the master bedroom so people couldn't enter. But before that, I made sure to take pictures of everything. Ashley being crazy at the party with her friends, all the beer, and other random things happening was all saved as proof. Ashley's plan was to wake up early the next morning and make me clean up everything before my dad and Karen came back from their trip. I woke up very early in the morning, around 6 a.m. I walked out and saw that the house was still in disarray and people were passed out everywhere. I mustered up the courage to call my dad and explain everything. He wouldn't believe me at first, but it didn't take long for him to understand that I wasn't joking about this. He was as shocked and outraged as I hoped he would be when he arrived and saw the state of the house. The final cherry on top, of course, was Ashley's little rule book where she had basically declared me her slave. Karen also looked mortified, and it was incredibly satisfying. Finally, after all the trouble the two of them put me through, I had something to really show my dad. My dad wasted no time in dealing with Ashley's behavior. He revoked her shopping privileges, confiscated her phone, and said that she would have to give my room back and move into the smaller room. It was clear that he was not going to tolerate her antics any longer. He also got very angry at her for the rule book and asked her if all the things I said about her being mean to me were true all along. She tried to deny it, but he wouldn't hear a word of it. He told her that she could forget about ever being trusted by him again and she could say goodbye to her car because he would sell it and put the money in my college fund. Ashley was just furious. She had been all weepy and apologetic, but when my dad said he would take away her car, she just completely lost it. She started screaming about how he was being unfair and called me a scrawny little rat who would never go anywhere. I wasn't even hurt, honestly. I nearly laughed at her little temper tantrum. This was the perfect outcome, and nothing she could do or say could ever take away from the fact that her perfect daughter act has been ruined forever. But my dad got really mad at Ashley and told her to apologize to me for saying that, and she obviously refused. She stormed out of the room saying she hated me and my dad and couldn't wait to go back to her real dad. I was shocked. I took one look at Karen's face and knew that she was scared that Ashley would actually leave and go to her dad. However, things took a turn for the worse when Karen also got involved. She had been quiet till now and didn't interrupt my dad once, except to tell Ashley that she was disappointed in her. But after Ashley stormed off, she defended Ashley and accused my dad of being too harsh on her. She said that there was no need to take away her car and they could just keep her grounded for a few weeks and not turn her whole life upside down. My dad asked me to go to my room and give them some room to talk, so I don't really know what they talked about, but even from my room, I could hear that their argument escalated into a heated exchange with both of them getting pretty loud. At that point, I started feeling guilty about what I did. Maybe I took things too far? I just wanted to teach Ashley a lesson, but now things in the house are just bad and I don't know what to do. My dad did come and talk to me in the evening though and told me he was glad that I helped him see the truth and apologized for not believing me earlier. He said that I would always be his first priority and he was just trying to make Ashley comfortable in a new environment and it was never his intention to make me less important than her. Tonight at dinner, no one was talking and things were just awkward and tense. Karen tried to talk to Ashley, but she again stormed off the room saying she never should have come to this house. It was never my intention to cause a fight between Karen and my dad, and I can't help but feel like I've messed things up for him. AITA for going behind Ashley's back and exposing her real behavior in front of my dad? Update 1. Thanks to everyone who supported me and said that I didn't do anything wrong. Although my dad said the same thing, I couldn't help but feel like he was just trying not to hurt my feelings, and so hearing other people agree with me feels great. A lot of you wanted to know how things are going in the house now. Well, Ashley is still refusing to apologize to me. Actually, she doesn't even acknowledge me and kind of pretends that I am invisible. I don't care though, it works for me. My dad warned her that if she tried to bother me at school, there would be more trouble for her, so I'm having a good time in school as well. Also, my dad was serious about everything he said. He only gives Ashley her phone when she goes to school and takes it away the moment she is back. She is not allowed to go out. And yes, I got my room back. It actually feels better than I expected it would be. My dad did tell Ashley that she would get her phone privileges back if she apologized to me, but she refused to do that, so well, not my problem. And about her car, even I thought that my dad was just trying to scare her by saying he would sell it, but turns out he was completely serious. I think he has even found a buyer already. This is the biggest reason for fights in the house currently. Ashley has thrown many tantrums about it and Karen and Dad also keep fighting about it regularly. I wish Ashley would just apologize, even if she doesn't mean it, just to put an end to all this. I know my dad and I know he would forgive her if she apologizes and doesn't do anything similar in the future. But if she wants to be stubborn, there is nothing I can do about it. Karen has also been colder than usual with me. She hasn't really said or done anything directly, but it's like I can just feel her looking at me with absolute hatred whenever I am around. Even though I don't think I have done something wrong anymore, I am beginning to almost regret what I did because of how complicated things have become. Anyway, thanks for hearing me out. I hope Ashley apologizes and everything just settles down. Update 2. So things did not settle down. It has been 3 days since my last update and a lot has happened since then. If any of you remember, I had mentioned in my original post that Ashley had said she wished that she never moved into our house. Well, I guess she was serious about that. So the day after I wrote my last update, Ashley and I went to school as usual. Karen was not at home, so we couldn't ask her and just decided to go back and check. She wasn't there when we went home either, and Dad started getting actually worried. He called Karen to ask if Ashley had said anything about going out to the mall or something, but she hadn't. Karen said that she would call Ashley's friends and ask if she was with anyone. After around half an hour of calling around, she wasn't with any of them. I was also getting worried at that point and thought that maybe I should tell them about her boyfriend. My intention wasn't to snitch on her, but both my dad and Karen were getting really worried and I thought that maybe she was with her boyfriend and we had no reason to worry. So I told them, and Karen asked me if I knew who the guy was. I do because he's a senior in my school. I didn't have his number because I don't actually know him, but I asked around and got it. I called him and asked if Ashley was with him, and he said she wasn't. Karen took the phone from me and asked him if he knew where she was, and he said no. Karen asked him again and begged him to tell the truth because they were getting really worried, and after hesitating a bit, he told them that she had gone to her dad's house. Karen just lost her mind. She started screaming at my dad, saying that he had driven away her little girl and that she had never done anything like this ever before. My dad said that Karen was overreacting and that if Ashley was with her dad, it was fine because she was safe and they had nothing to worry about. Just to be sure of it, Karen called Ashley's dad and asked if Ashley was with him, and he said that she came over after school and had told him that she would be staying there for a while. Karen got really angry and asked to speak to Ashley because she hadn't been picking up any of our calls, and he said that she didn't want to talk to anyone right now. Karen got into a fight over the call, saying that he couldn't just keep her with him like that, and he told him that his daughter could stay wherever she wanted to and she shouldn't have driven her away if she cared so much about her being there. Karen was furious, and after hanging up the call, she started fighting with my dad again. So Dad sent me to my room again, but I kind of eavesdropped and listened in on their fight. I have never heard Karen be so angry. She was screaming and said that my dad had ruined everything and that now her ex finally had control over their daughter. My dad said that she was overthinking this and they should just go over to his place and talk to Ashley and everything would be fine. Karen seemed to calm down at that, but then she said that if I wasn't such a jealous brat, none of this would have happened in the first place. I was kind of hurt at that, but my dad was absolutely furious. I don't think I've ever heard him be so angry. He told Karen that she was delusional if she thought that all of this was anyone's fault except Ashley's. They fought more. Dad said that he never should have let Ashley get comfortable enough to feel entitled and that she was a bully. At that point, I had enough and went back to my room. All the yelling really got to me. After some time, my dad came to my room and said that he was driving Karen to Ashley's dad's place and gave me some money to order dinner. They ended up leaving in some time and I was just hoping that when they returned, Ashley would be there with them. They returned in a couple of hours, but Ashley wasn't with them. I asked Dad why she didn't come back and he said that Ashley had told him and Karen that she would be living with her dad now and didn't want to come back to our house and live with us again. Karen snapped at me and told me all of this was my fault and I should apologize to Ashley. This just led to another fight between her and my dad, and I was sent to my room again. That was 3 days ago and Ashley hasn't returned. Karen calls her every day and even my dad apologized to her and asked her to come back. But she still refuses to come back. Karen keeps saying that I must apologize to her because that's the only way she will come back. But my dad has made it clear that I will not do that. I am really confused and wondering if I should just apologize anyway. I don't care so much in the first place, and if apologizing can fix this mess, then maybe I should do it. I told Dad that I didn't mind, but he insisted that I should not do it. I think I'll just listen to him and not do anything on my own. To be honest, I can't help but feel a little glad that Ashley isn't here anymore. If it wasn't causing so much fighting between Karen and my dad, I would have wished she never came back. I mean, I'm sure she is having a nice time with her dad, and if she isn't, she could just come back whenever she wants to. Update 3. It has been a month since my last update and I have some big news to share with you guys. So Ashley is still living with her dad. Thanks to Karen calling her every day, she did agree to come back, but she said that she would do it only if I apologized. she got her room back, and my dad bought her a new car. I should let you guys know that my dad hasn't actually sold Ashley's car. He did find a buyer, but when Ashley ran away, he changed his mind and we still have it. Ashley knows this and still is asking for a new car. My dad absolutely refused to do that and said that she couldn't just make mistakes, throw tantrums, and expect everything to be fine. Karen was just desperate to do whatever it took to get her daughter back and tried to convince my dad, which only led to more arguments. It has been weeks of this back and forth, and a few hours ago, my dad came into my room and said that we needed to talk. I actually thought that he would tell me that he was going to agree to Ashley's demands and wanted me to apologize, but he actually told me that he and Karen have decided to separate. He told me that this was for the best and I didn't have to worry about it and that he was fine. I was surprised, but it would be a lie to say I didn't see this coming. I mean, it's hardly possible to stay with someone if you fight so much. So yeah, Karen and Ashley will be gone from my life permanently now. I wonder if I would do things the same way if I knew how bad the situation would get. But it is what it is now, I guess. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Volunteered at a charity shop for months and ran it alone, but when I applied for a paid job, they gave it to the boss's friend's daughter and offered me an unpaid promotion instead. I've been volunteering in a charity shop since about August last year. I initially started to get myself back into a routine and work ready for being out of work for so long. I really enjoyed it, and it's given me so much confidence. Unfortunately, the manager had to take sick leave because she needs an operation. The assistant manager handed in her keys and quit because no one from the other stores would come in and help cover a day for her. So she was basically doing everything. The shop had to close for a while till they found someone else. When they did, I came straight back because I had started to fall backwards in myself and needed the routine again. The new floating manager, let's call Mary, is 19 and had no idea how to run the shop. Her mom is the company's customs manager for this area. She is also best friends with another lady who runs one of the other shops. She has 2 daughters. One is running another shop. This is not a family-run business. At first, it was very unwelcoming, and they changed how we worked. I gave it time because obviously, she's new to this and doesn't really talk to anyone. Eventually, over time, we became friendly, worked well together, and had a laugh. A new assistant manager had been hired who is absolutely amazing, and we get on very well. He has recently gone to another one of the stores to run it as manager. His job became available, so I asked about applying. Mary got really excited and wanted me to apply. She helped me with interview questions, gave me the opportunity to run the shop for a few days completely on my own, which went very well. At first, she wasn't doing the interviews. It was her mom and someone else. When it came closer, I got informed that her and her mom were interviewing me. I got excited because I thought I was a shoo-in, as Mary had expressed if she could pick, then it would be me. A day before, I found out that the lady's other daughter was applying too. I knew from then on it didn't matter what I said or did. I wouldn't be getting it because they are all very close. Mary's mom rang me to say I didn't get it. The other girl did, making out it was some random woman, even though I know it's the daughter, but that I did very well and they wanted to make me lead volunteer. I've been there for months, run it on my own, cashed up, opened up, everything. I know how to run it better than Mary does. I want to leave because I feel like I've been screwed over. I'm going to complain to the higher-ups because I feel it's unfair to basically say I have the job, but then give it to your best friend's daughter. Comments. Comment. Don't bother complaining. Don't bother going in again. NTA. Comment. Don't bother telling them. Let them work it out for themselves. Comment. Complaining probably won't do any good. Best bet is to walk away and find a job that pays, or some other charity until you do. And don't give a notice. At the end of a day, just say, I'm not coming back to work here, and leave. Preferably when you know they will be shorthanded because other people are already taking off. It's up to you if you want to give them a notice or reason you're leaving. Me, I just say, I'm not coming back. Comment. Yes, don't complain. Leave. Any notice up to you. They will quickly learn nepotism is not a management strategy. We suffer and will cover that all up or chalk it up to learning on the job. I do not see anyone reaching out to admit they made a mistake. And if you stay, you're just a doormat and will have to run the place without pay or recognition. Update. Thank you for your messages. I didn't expect anyone to reply. I left. I went in and it was really awkward. So when I finished for the day, I told Mary, "This is my last day." She was shocked and didn't really know what to say. I walked out knowing that most of the other volunteers will probably leave soon too, either for paying jobs or because they are getting annoyed with how it's run. I'm also going to tell the higher-ups about it because I don't want them to get away with it. It's not the first time, and someone in the comments pointed out that corporate might not know what is going on, and it's not fair to anyone. Comments. Comment. Mary must be really dense if she's shocked. Ankle Biter 42. You'd be surprised at how stupid people like this can be. Either that or she thinks she's manipulating OP. Comment. Of course she's shocked. I mean, they were going to make OP the head volunteer. I can't believe OP is throwing away that kind of opportunity. Screw that money. Everyone should be scrambling for those unpaid volunteer hours. /s. Comment. Honesty, this was the best course of action for you. If you are in the UK, it does not sound like there was a fair recruitment process given that there was favoritism to someone who did not have experience. Comment. NEPO hires happen everywhere. They usually end up in disaster, but you have to wait for the disaster for anything to change. Deleted. If it's a large company, they will not be happy that a relatively nothing person, the mother, is pissing up good people for her little NEPO babies. Comment. Even though I know this happens, it still makes me angry. High person who knows how to run the store. We decided the better candidate is the person who knows nothing. However, we'd like to give you a sparkly title and more responsibility. Zero pay. Cool, right? Comment. They're trying to protect their backs. They needed someone else applying so they could say they followed the proceedings and selected the best applicant. In this case, as OP was highly qualified, if the NEPA's protege was selected, she must be a great candidate. So Mary cast the bait and OP bit it. And OFC, they wanted to give OP some crumbs. They didn't want to lose her, and FFSOP was already giving them maximum effort for nothing. They weren't ever going to pay her. Comment. Most of the comments seem to be glancing over the fact she was just volunteering there. It's not surprising a business wouldn't want to give up an employee that was working there for nothing. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Wife ruined our 5-year marriage by cheating on me with some random dude during the camping trip I planned. I, 38 male, decided to take my wife of 5 years camping for her 30th birthday. She was an outdoorsy extrovert, and I was and am an introvert with a healthy combination of lazy and active tendencies. A month prior to our camping trip, my wife had started harping on me to get more active and thoughtful in our relationship. I was a little surprised when she said it because it sounded like she was getting bored of me. She did message a lot of people on a regular basis and even made friends in public. I didn't understand how or why she did it. I wanted to live off the grid in a cabin in the woods, but I knew that wasn't her dream. She worked part-time on her laptop as a writer, usually going to a park or somewhere outdoors to work. Meanwhile, I was the breadwinner, raking in piles of cash with my hard labor and industrial installation career. At first, she would always offer me a rub when I got home, sometimes even a full body massage. It was amazing. I felt like she really cared about me and how hard I worked. Eventually, though, she stopped offering and started asking more of me in my time off. I tried to tell her how I felt, but she wouldn't listen unless I was giving in to one of her requests. These requests didn't seem like much to her, but they were to me. Being an introvert, I did not want to go to the party she was invited to. Somehow, she was always invited on trips or to people's houses, and I never wanted to go. A trip with just us would have been fine, but to go to a stranger's house and sleep over seemed like a big, uncomfortable thing to me. I hate chit-chat. So to compromise, I told her about the birthday trip I planned for us. Just me and her spending 4 days on Asset Island camping in our fold-down RV. She was ecstatic. She loved horses and camping but never imagined traveling there and making it happen. In the weeks leading up to this trip, she started giving me massages again. At the time, I had no idea what my wife was capable of and just how much she'd convinced herself there were other men out there for her to find. Our campsite was no more than 70 yards away from another RV. It was bigger and fancier, way more than I wanted or needed. Of course, my wife was impressed when the ponies came over to us. They didn't linger for long. They headed for the neighboring RV because they already had a campfire going. My wife used this as an excuse to go introduce herself. She asked me to go with her, but I didn't want to. I told her I didn't mind if she went over to chat and told her I loved her. She was gone for an hour before I decided to go over there. As I approached, I noticed it was a single attractive man that my wife was chatting away with. In my mind, I was wondering why he needed such an obnoxious RV if it was only him. She was laughing and blushing, and it was clear to me she really liked this guy. Not only that, but she looked at me like she was disappointed when I finally decided to show up. She hesitated to introduce me as her husband, and that was the greatest slap in the face. I told her I wanted her to come back to the RV with me, and she asked why I was so embarrassed. She was challenging me. I just told her I had a surprise for her because I knew it was the only way she'd come with me. Even then, she told App she'd be right back. When we got back to our site, the horses followed me. My wife was thrilled by that. The horses surrounded me as I firmly reminded her I was doing this all for her. She was my world, and I wanted to show her I could be her husband without being an extrovert. I reminded her how well we loved each other over the past 5 years and how I could continue being the man for her. Then I asked her why she even wanted to talk to this guy or have so many friends or go to parties. I asked what valuable fulfillment it gave her in her heart and why it made her feel good to smear on makeup, put on a dress, and go converse with people even if I wasn't there. She was surprised and a little offended, but when she tried to explain the pleasure she got from being an extrovert, she only sounded egotistical and shallow. She realized how she sounded and got frustrated with me, concluding that she was just going to make friends and talk to whoever she wanted, whether I approved or not. She tried to make it sound like I was controlling her, but I wasn't. I always let her do whatever it was she wanted, even if it didn't make sense to me. Throughout our marriage, she never cheated on me or gave me any reason to believe I couldn't trust her, although I never did check her phone. I wasn't confrontational and never felt like I needed to see who she was talking to. I really didn't know just how heartless she could be. She put in her earbuds and sat with the horses on our site. I was relieved she didn't go back to App out of spite, so I started our own campfire, hoping it would make her happy. Eventually, we went to bed in silence. My wife curled up alone on the far side of the bed. I was glad to get some sleep and a fresh start in the morning. I had no idea I was about to wake up much earlier than expected. It was still dark out when I turned over to spoon my wife, and she was gone. Instantly, I was thrown into a nightmare. I instantly pictured her with App in his RV, but I spared a few seconds to check our bathroom. She wasn't there. I put on my robe and slippers, raced over to the RV, and listened. As soon as I heard the slightest noise from inside, I banged on the door. I heard my wife gasp, followed by some shuffling. As soon as App opened the door, I pushed my way in while yelling for her. She was breathless and frantic, adjusting her pajamas and walking out from the small bedroom. When I could see her face, she looked terrified. Just then, App shoved me really hard straight out the door of his RV. I landed on my back, and it hurt bad, but I still got to my feet. This was when my wife absolutely broke down. She started crying harder than I ever saw in my life, and she was screaming at App for hurting me. I started walking back to our site, and she flocked to my side, trying to make herself useful by holding up my arm. I yanked away and told her I was a man, and I didn't need her to survive. She could barely speak, but she was saying sorry and stuttering to explain why she was in App's RV. She couldn't form a sentence, and she'd buy herself time by sobbing. She knew she was guilty. She just didn't want to say it. She wanted to lie and cover it up. I cut to the chase and told her I knew she slept with him. I knew she was willing to sleep with him and sneak off from me to defile our marriage. I told her we were over, and I would be filing for divorce. As I said it, I knew I was making this decision quickly, but I also knew she did this to me, and it was reality now. I knew my logic was sound, and I knew I would stand firm in my decision. My wife started hyperventilating, and it was hard to see her that way. I wanted to make her feel better because all she wanted was me, and I wanted her, but I knew I couldn't. We were stuck together, at least for the night, because I needed to sleep before driving us home. At this point, She was willing to do anything to show me respect and humility, so she left me alone to sleep. She would have done anything for my forgiveness, which is such a shame because she should have considered how much I mattered to her before she decided to cheat on me with a camping stranger. On the car ride home, it was silent and awkward. I thought about how I had noticed the downfall in her behavior but never imagined she'd do this. I had tried to talk to her about things before, but it never helped because she wasn't willing to change her perspective or let what I was saying sink in. When we got home, she refused to pack her stuff. She did not want to tell her father what happened. She didn't want anyone to know or get involved in our business. I had no choice but to call her dad. Her dad helped her pack her stuff, and it was like she was a child. It was disturbing. I trusted her father enough to leave them to it while I went for a drive. Out of all the people she talked to on her cell phone, I didn't know any of them personally. I didn't know which of her friends would actually come help her get her stuff. But in the end, the answer was no one. None of her friends were really friends. They were all superficial and absorbed in their own lives except for one thing. They all thrived on the drama. When they got wind of my wife's infidelity and divorce in which she lost everything, that's when some of them messaged her to get the scoop and tell her she was right and totally justified in her actions, and some of them scolded her and called her what she really was. Some of them stopped talking to her completely, which included one of her closest friends. She was so heartbroken that she stopped writing and earning an income. I can only hope she learned her lesson. I hope she realizes that she was obsessed with the wrong things and convinced herself over time that she didn't need me or deserve someone else. Well, she got her opportunity, except now she can't find someone else. As much as it hurt to let her go, accept what happened, and start over, I know I grew from this experience. She was only my first attempt at marriage and won't be the last. I take what I can from those years in my life and let it fuel me to be better, more selfless, understanding, observant, and willing to love my partner in her love language. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.